Great. Thank you, everyone. Good morning. Welcome, everyone, to I think, the first of its kind Godrej Consumer Product Investor Meet 2024. But before we begin, a quick AV from our safety team.
Welcome to Godrej One, corporate head office of Godrej Group of Companies. Before proceeding to premises, we would like to brief you with essential safety, security, and health measures. Please follow these do's and don'ts while you are on our site campus. While moving on escalator, please be on left side. To ensure that you wear the ID card so that it is visible at all times. The premises is no tobacco zone and no smoking zone. Do not run inside the premises. Take lift from first floor to access second to sixth floor. Take lift from ground floor to access 6th to 11th floor. Do not operate or handle any equipment, electrical panels, etc. unless otherwise authorized to do so. Watch out for reversing vehicles. Take note of the closet exit routes as displayed in the area that you will visit. Emergency instructions. In case of emergency, it will be notified through the siren tone and public announcement system. Pay attention to the public address system about instructions given out on how to handle the emergency. If the emergency requires an evacuation, it will be notified through the siren tone and personal announcement, public address system. Upon hearing this evacuation tone, you will be required to reach the nearest assembly point. Do not run, just walk briskly. Emergency signage posted at locations will lead you to the nearest exit. During an emergency, use the outer staircase only to exit your area. If you are in the first or higher floors, do not use lifts or escalator. At the assembly point, follow the instructions given by the site controller or the security personnel. Once the emergency is resolved, it will be informed through the announcement. In case you see any unsafe situation or incident, please dial 916-730-3030. You may also reach out to the nearest person to convey the emergency. Unsafe situation. Exit procedure. Remember to collect your belongings, if any, from the meeting room and the security office. Thank you for visiting us.
Great, thank you. I hope you all paid attention because there'll be a quiz at the end. But first, it's great to greet all of you. I know the weight of the result season is heavy on your shoulders, but it's great to see this auditorium packed, and it's great to see all of you. I'm Vishal, Head of Strategy, FP&A and Investor Relations here at Godrej Consumer Products. And we're very excited to have the best of Godrej Consumer Products lined up today for the event today. So we will kick off the event with our chairperson, Nisa, who will take you through the longer term thinking about the business and how she is viewing the business at her state. Following her, we will have our Managing Director and CEO, Sudhir. He will take you all through how the global business is performing in light of our strategic narrative, which we call our Goodness Manifesto. He will also take you through what we have plans for the India business in the future. After Sudhir, we will have Rajesh take over. He will take everyone through the transformation journey that we have gone through in the ASEAN business, as well as take everyone through what his plans are for the business in future. Post Rajesh, we will have our CFO, Asif. He will talk about the simplification journey that we are undergoing and underway in our Latin America and Guam businesses. Finally, adding a bit of magic to the event, we will have our Head of R&D, Venkat. He will take you all through a live demonstration of our new HI molecule, RNF. Some do's and don'ts for the event. Mobile phones should be at silent mode at all times. And please don't interrupt the speakers while they are presenting. We will have a dedicated Q&A panel session towards the end of the event where you can all ask your questions. Without further delay, I will ask upon Nisa to take up.
You all can clap much louder, huh? We're very happy with lots of clapping. So a very good morning to all of you. Thank you for being here with us today. It's a real privilege for us to have you and to share a little bit more about Godrej with you. And I need the clicker. Yeah. Sorry. As long as the slides move, it'll be good. So I have to tell you, I have been thinking about family dynamics a lot these days. And there's this like subtle laugh going on. But it's not mine because, you know, ours are really as clean as soap. And Mr. Harsh Goenka himself has ratified that. So you can clap for this. Okay, so how many of you know, I think a lot of you know Sudhir well. I know him really well. And the family dynamics I've actually been thinking about are Sudhir's. So Sudhir is obsessed with underlying volume growth. I think he repeats it as a mantra. He walks around underlying volume growth, underlying volume growth. So it's like that. That's what's happening at GCPL. And Sudhir comes from from a family of writers. I think his mother, his uncle, and on the left there is Vinay, who's Sudhir's younger brother, 7 years younger. And this is Sudhir on the right, and you can see underlying volume growth is not doing very well. It's like a 5x, so maybe that's why he's walking around mumbling underlying volume growth. But no fear, no fear. When something's not going well, you all are analysts, you all are investors. You know we can throw a carrot out there, an HI molecule here, and everything is going to be better. So here we go. And keeping in the laundry theme of his second book, I thought he could just write a 1,500 page. This has been a big fab launch for us. Clap, clap, come on. It's early morning. We can have some fun. So 1,000 pages, 1,500 pages, and we'll be done. And if no one reads it, Mr. Goenka can, you know, summarize many years of work in a tweet. But what I actually wanted to talk about today, jokes apart, is that some of these chapters are actually being written as we speak. So I just wanted to quickly take you through what I'm seeing as these chapters. So the first one is, I think household insecticides for GCPL it's our most purposeful category. It's also our most profitable category. And as some of us know, in the last few years in India, we've definitely had some growth challenges. But I think this year, what Sudhir and Venkat and the whole team have scripted is quite amazing. We've got a new molecule called renofluthrin. We've talked about it before. We are the only people in India to have access to this molecule. I think that gives us a very powerful way to serve the consumer and a very powerful competitive edge. We've also launched Goodnight Agarbattis, and these are by far the best products out in the market with the strongest brand. And I think the real excitement is going to come, especially for the consumer, as we bring this new molecule into liquid vaporizers and drive another movement of penetration. I think when Sudhir writes this story, hopefully it won't only be about the year 23 and 24, because this is a long story. I think there's a story from the past, which you can see on the right-hand side. We've had challenges in household insecticides before. Actually, All Out, who is a very good, it's good to have strong competitors, was the first to launch liquid vaporizers in India. But when we came with our new molecule, a new, better performing machine, this is what happened to market share. So, I don't know if it's as much of a market share story in LV as a penetration story, but certainly in incense stick, this is what we could expect. And I think the other thing Sudhir will be writing about really is climate change and what's going to happen there. I don't know if any of you've read the latest Economist and what's happening with dengue across the world. We have a LATAM business, so we've been watching that closely. Dengue cases have gone over the last 15 years in LATAM itself from about 500,000 to 6 million this year. So this is also the reason that we do this business. We have to protect consumers. So while RNF is very good for the company, what makes us really, really happy is it's very good for the consumers. And I think the other thing that will be written in this chapter is where we failed, and we did fail in our management of regulatory. And I think maybe Sudhir and Asif and Venkat will comment on that later, but I think that's been a significant investment and improvement. We didn't have a corporate affairs team at Godrej, which we did put together 2 years ago. So this is a work with the government more closely. I always tell Dharnesh, who's our Africa head, that he should wear a t-shirt with the words, "Show me the money." And every time he comes to meet me. But I think this year, again, we are scripting some changes. And if you look back to 2010 and 2011, there were 3 buckets of acquisitions that GCPL did. The first was in India itself, when what I referred to in the earlier slide, we bought back shares from Godrej Sara Lee, which owned the Goodnight and Hit brands, combined it into GCPL. I think last year at our investor meeting, I sort of talked about how 100 crores is probably worth close to 30, maybe now 40,000 crores. We then acquired the Indonesian business, by which all measures has been a success. Maybe we have a year or two up and down, but has been a success. And then west of India, I think we definitely, so in the third bucket, west of India, we've definitely struggled much more. But I think, the team, Asif, Sudhir, a big thank you to them. Dharnesh has taken a hard look at this business. And, we've talked about what's happened in how we've restructured the business in East Africa. I think in Nigeria, it's a big play on distribution and rebalancing the portfolio through FMCG. And in the US and Chile, moving margins up by manufacturing, outsourcing. And I think the team will talk about this more as we go along. But this is a significant move in terms of also the time the team has to spend, I think, will come down, and this will do much better as we go along. This is a story not many people know, and I'm going to call it the 2040, The Power of Backcasting. That's Pirosha Godrej there. He's a GCPL board member and also happens to be my younger brother. And I hope, Sudhir, we do better versus some of the GPL growth than you're doing on book writing. But so we sent him this message saying, we want to talk to you about this 2040 plan. And he said, what's the point? 17 years ahead. I'm not sure this makes too much sense. But I think when you see what Sudhir is sort of planned for the future and what we need today, and it's playing out. So 2040 was basically, if we want to be this big, bright company down the line, what do we need to do specifically in India on TAM? Like what are these markets we want to address? And if you look at, and then he broke it up into what would we do inorganically and what we would do organically. And if you look at, say, liquid laundry detergents or deos and perfumes, these two, if you look 10 years out, you look further out, will be some of the biggest categories in the country. So this will be one story. Another chapter could be about this, the creative company. When Sudhir joined GCPL, I think the only, I said you have an absolutely free hand to do what you want, be very entrepreneurial, just really come and let's do some great stuff. But the one thing, Sudhir, is that I do think that we've got right is R&D and design. We have these deep capabilities, this deep creativity, and this deep love for what Godrej stands for and the brand. And I'm happy Sudhir didn't fully listen to me, because not only has he come and made R&D stronger, the investments he's looking at putting into R&D are much larger than even I had ever imagined. I think the detailed science thinking, even in household insecticides, the new perspectives, I think we'll see them play out. And to my delight, not only has he deepened these capabilities, but he's also brought and built Lightbox. And I think we're probably the first consumer goods company, I don't know how it is globally, but at least in India, to say that where we spend 1,000 crores, we are going to build this content and capability ourselves. So I definitely think that when we write the GCPL story, and I hope we do get the chance, because you have to be successful to write this story, I do think this will be a big part of it. The other thing Sudhir's going to write about, and this, I think, was something that was missing at GCPL. And I always, I've said this before, like I got my MBA at a pretty good school, and I always tell Sudhir, working with you is getting this second MBA. So there's all this boldness and entrepreneurship, but it's also being codified into these principles. I don't know if you can, so this was, I was on the road and took a picture of 2 air pockets in a car, and I messaged Sudhir saying, this advertising is amazing, you're increasing penetration and consumption, but just what the team has done on this. I think even say things like media planning, the kind of science principles is just at another level. And I'm only giving you a few examples. I don't know, I think we have 10, 15 code books already, and they're getting written every year. And this is 2 sides of a story. Again, this is India, but the bigger picture is actually our van program. I think we have the biggest van program in the country, and the kind of serious investments and drive that's going into this. And actually, when you go out into the market, you realize what the value is. This is in rural Madhya Pradesh, quite a few hours out of Indore, and we go to this shopkeeper, and we start talking to him about liquid vaporizer, and he had some of our competitors' products, 2, 3 pieces, and he has pressure because there are like 5, 6 people from Godrej, and we're all trying to prove that we can sell, but he's like, bhaiya, nahi chahiye. Like, I don't want this, correct? But the power of taking out that small machine, the small refill, he looks at it, he sees it, and he says, yeah, okay, I'll try this. And this can't be done through wholesale. This does take that door to door, and this is our purpose, correct? Bringing this idea of health, the goodness of health and beauty in emerging markets. And you do this one van, one day at a time. On the other side is this digital back-end revolution that's going on at GCPL. And this is actually I think, and I think Sudhir will talk about it more, but this is like every salesperson, every feet on the ground we have being tracked that they've come to work on time, and they're actually in the market. And it might sound a bit drastic. When I saw it, I was like, are people going to like being tracked like this? But it increases productivity hugely. So I think we're seeing a lot of these detailed code books being written, which I think is why we're getting the UVG we are getting. I also hope, I don't think we've done enough on this, but I hope one of the chapters in the book will be about this green discount. And I think it's a Western idea to believe that we should just take a bit of plastic and a bit of sugar and that we will be meeting goals. I think we need to rethink things from the base. And one example, and I think the green discount for me is something that is more sustainable, serves the consumer better, serves the environment, but makes more money for GCPL also. And by making more money, I mean, if you can, this less is more philosophy, if there's less packaging, less things they don't need, the cost comes down and your margin can be higher. And I think we see this all across, not just product, but even process. And this example on the left, I think maybe we've spoken about it before, but is an example of a plastic wick in our LV, one of our biggest businesses, coming from the US. It's plastic, and that's the organic version of it, and we save 60 crores a year by doing this. So I think this is what emerging market companies need to be excellent at. All of you know what Godrej magic is. We don't have to transport water in many categories, and we should be doing more of this. And I'm almost done. We're at our last chapter. When Sudhir joined, he told me his purpose was to build great Indian institutions and leave them better. And I think in many ways, this should be the most important chapter about the Godrej way. And I just wanted to give a few examples from this year, correct? We always talk about 1897, and actually May 7th is our founding day. And we always talk about what we did, and we started in India's freedom movement, and we hold India's constitutional values very close. But I think this is something you build on every year in what you do. And this true self versus best self is that, GCPL, when you look at representation for women, we're over 50% on our board, and we're over 50% when you look at the overall company. But this is a picture down here as we're setting up a new, but in manufacturing in India, we're quite low. We have about 23%, if I count even all our 3P partners and stuff, and we're looking to move that up to like 36, 37 over the next few years. And in this picture, we've gone to meet Mr. Stalin in Chennai to set up a new facility there. And before we went into this meeting, we got told it's a very formal meeting. Please don't speak out of turn. Like Asif told me, don't say anything stupid today. And while we were at this meeting, very, very formal meeting, and at some point, we've got an incentive to have in employment 50% of the people as women representation, LGBTQ, and somehow I think we mentioned to him that we're so proud of this fact. It makes us proud to be Indian because Tamil Nadu is so progressive on these ideas of inclusion. Suddenly this formal meeting turned around. Sudhir started opening the box of products, like what are we going to produce in Chennai. We showed the red synthol soap, which Tamil Nadu is the biggest premium soap market. and Synthol's the biggest brand there, so we opened it. And it was a really lovely moment because and Parmesh is here, he's the author of Queeristan. So if anyone, we have copies of the book. But he called the photographer, this is his photographer, to take this picture. So I think if we can do more of this, keep looking at our true self and say, where can we get better? What a privilege it is to be doing this work. Next is Rajesh. Rajesh, you want to stand up? Because I've been telling them to clap for me, now they can clap for you. So Rajesh is our head of our Indonesia business, and I think Rajesh has been a powerful story to me of adding on to the Godrej way. So I think when he went into Indonesia, the business had quite a few challenges, and I think one of the big challenges he sort of faced was in distribution in terms of changing the model. There were other things that he went in and did. He said he thanks Sudhir for giving him the space and not pushing him on the numbers the year he joined, so he had the space to make these changes. But so all this change is going on, and then Rajesh decides, and we do 360-degree in the company, so we all get 360-degree reports, but it's with the 10 or 15 people we work with closely. He told our head of talent, why don't you take a 360-degree from everyone in the company in a difficult year, correct, where maybe perhaps people would push back, say no, but he wants that feedback. And actually, we've been talking about that is an example of the Godrej way, and more leaders should do that in difficult situations, really take wide feedback. And the last example I had today is not from GCPL, but I think I was very proud of this. This happened last year in July, and this is in Godrej Properties, and this is actually an email sent by a customer to Pirosha, who's the chairperson of GPL. And we had a big product issue in one of our projects called Godrej Summit in Gurgaon. It turns out that because of the water quality all over Gurgaon that's been going into construction, there are some issues with buildings across Gurgaon. So this comes up. We have IIT study it independently, give us a report, and they're saying structural repairs will be needed for this project. And the decision Pirosha takes is to lay these facts out very openly in front of consumers and say, we will give you our money back. This is the IIT report, this is the repairs we're going to do, here's the report, but if you want your money back on these apartments, Godrej will stand by its brand, and you can buy back the apartment. And I think this is the Godrej way. So we are not perfect. We don't always get it right, but I think every year, if we can do a little bit better, that's good for us. So a big thank you, and thank you once again for being here.
Wonderful. Thanks very much, Nisa. I don't think my presentation is going to hold a candle to that, but let me speak a little bit more about more mundane things like turbocharging volume growth, which is the theme of our deck. Before I talk about, kind of look at the past and look at the future, just a quick look at now. Q4 FY24, we normally do an analyst call. We haven't had that this time, we're not doing it. But just the quick headlines, our consolidated volumes, organic grew 9%, EBITDA grew 18%, and PAT, before exceptional items, grew 22%. You have to, however, remember this is a leap year, so you get 1% extra. So just in case you're wondering, but that is how it is. So I think the India business continued its strong trend. What was quite encouraging to us was that household insecticide, where actually we've been doing quite well in terms of market share, and incense sticks have been doing quite well since we've launched it, has had a, this winter has been an extended winter. Holi was in March 25th, so I know a lot of the cola guys and the juice guys have all had a little difficult Q4 because the northern season has been cold all the way to the end of March, and mosquitoes require a certain temperature. So it's been a poor season for mosquitoes, but despite that, we've done 7% organic volume growth. Incense stick shows promising signs. RCCL also, I'll talk about it, versus last year. Again, this is a relatively low quarter for deodorants because it's a cold quarter, but 140 crores was roughly on expectations and certainly a lot better than what RCCL did in quarter 4 last year. East Africa, we had an exit, and that's done, and we're now exited our East Africa business in hair extension. Asif will talk a lot more about 2,400 odd crores that we have written off our balance sheet, mainly in our GOM business. And I think our Indonesia business, which Rajesh will speak about, continues to do well with 12% volume growth, albeit on a relatively low base, but we see structurally the Indonesia business doing quite well even in this year and years to go. So this is a quick look at Q4 24. I think given the context of variety of things, it's a quarter that's been a reasonably good quarter. So with that, let me now talk a little bit about, firstly, GCPL FY23 and FY24. This is our third analyst meet. We had one in December 21, then I think we had one in May 23, and now we're having one in May 24. So I thought I would talk about the promises that we have made and take an honest view or an honest look at whether we have kept those promises and where we can do better. So I just thought, these are all slides from previous analyst decks, which is for a company that was actually from 2000 to 2016 doing exceptionally well. It moved to doing moderately. I don't think GCPL has ever been in a case where it's been doing badly, but certainly an exceptionally performing company became I would say, an average performing company, and therefore our share price was flat for a couple of years at about 700 rupees. So what were the promises that we made in December 21, about a few months after I kind of took over as the CEO and MD of GCPL? The first was that we must get to double-digit volume growth, certainly in India and Indonesia, and the international businesses need to be right structured. And we said we would do it through category development. Nisa alluded to category development being a relative weakness of GCPL, and to simplify our business. We also said we'll have a few kind of an operating philosophy which allows us to make decisions across the organization, including things like doing less is more. When we have to choose between consumer and business, when that choice is made, we will choose the consumer because we're in this for a long time, etc. And also we kind of looked at what were the strengths of GCPL, what were the weaknesses. Fundamental strengths, again, as Nisa alluded, was innovation has been a strength of this company, frugality has been a strength of the company. The weakness has been marketing, in particular category development, and a structure that is too complex for the size of the company. These were very simply put the strengths and weaknesses of the company. So these are all from charts made December 21. This is the May 23rd analyst meet. What we had said is that in 24, we will do high single-digit UVG and high teens EBITDA growth. That's what we had said we would do. And we had also said in the RCCL business, we will do a similar revenue in FY24 to FY23. And as we go into FY25, by the end of FY25, we will turn this business to EPS neutral, which means our EBITDA should be greater than the cost of capital. That's broadly what we had set for ourselves in terms of... so these were the set of promises, which were the whats. I'm not going to repeat them, except that double-digit UVG in the medium term still remains our goal for India, and a how. So there was a what and a how that we had promised. I thought I'll take you through what is our assessment of both the what and the how of what we had promised. So if you look at high single-digit UVG in FY24, our organic UVG is about 7%, and so is India. So I would say that it's more or less met in a context that was more difficult than we anticipated in India. So, and consumption has been lower than what we thought it would be at the beginning of FY24. We have beaten the high teens EBITDA growth that we had thought we would do and grown in the 20s. And in fact, if one removes media, which we have continued to invest, the growth has actually been in the mid-20s. The revenue and EBITDA of the RCCL business similar to FY23, I would put it as an amber, because while it is similar to FY23, I personally, from my internal numbers, I feel we could have done a little better in terms of deodorants. We've done a good, condom seems to be surprisingly good, but I would still say it's not, I mean, it's roughly what we said externally we'll do, but internally we had higher numbers and we've not fully met it. Double-digit UVG in the medium term in India, we feel we're on track. We feel we've done about 7% last year in India. We feel we should do slightly better this year, and hopefully in a year or two systematically build towards at least 9 to 10% consistent UVG if this machine can crank up. But I think we feel like step by step we're getting there, So I would say broadly on the what, a reasonably good scorecard. I think on the how, what we did was we converted the hows into a single page, what we call a goodness manifesto, which is a single page strategy for GCPL. Our purpose is the goodness of health, bringing the goodness of health and beauty to consumers in emerging market. Our values are actually the values of the group. Our strategy is simple: category development, develop categories, enter categories which are underdeveloped, get into a science of category development, and then execute it rigorously, and simplify it. Don't do many things, do a few things. The winning things are few. And the operating philosophy which I spoke about, some key measures, UVG being the most important measure, and we have taken a lot of calls which allow us to do UVG when we had to choose versus, let us say, sales growth. More spends on brands and less on cost to serve, more automation, less working capital, a little less success on more diversity, less environmental impact. What I'm now going to do is on the how, because the what is obviously available to all of you to read. I want to just, on the how, because the how is what is going to be the how for the future, give you a few examples of things that we've done well and a few examples that we've not done so well. I think on the purpose, which is bringing the goodness of health and beauty, in FY23, we have a little bit of an innovation light here. We really needed to simplify, focus, solidify. Also, costs were high. FY24 has been a better year in terms of innovations, and FY25 will be also a good year. There are fewer innovations than we do in the past, but more hits. So, Fab we spoke about, we think it's doing well. Another underspoken innovation, which a lot of you will see in your cars, and it's there outside, is this product called Godrej Aero, which you hang in your car. It's a membrane format, and it becomes transparent the moment the fragrance goes away. It's a genuinely innovative product. There aren't too many like this in the world that we know. We got it from Indonesia. Agarbatti, and then Rajesh will talk to you about a electric fragrancer, which we are just launching as we speak in Indonesia. Increasing our TAM, I think Nisa also spoke about, we've got to take a look at what is India in the future going to look like. And India in the future is not that hard to imagine. In 2040, India will be what Thailand is or China is today. So you can roughly see what, and there'll be some changes, but 80% of it will be roughly the same. So you know what are the categories of the future. Fragrance and sexual wellness are certainly categories of the future. So we said, let's enter it. We'll figure out how to create value from it. We've also been expanding our reach. So some of these products like Air Pocket, we're finding, or shampoo hair color, I'll talk to you. These are Indian innovations. We're finding them having a lot of acceptance in global hard currency markets, and we've set up a Godrej international system to take this across the world. So I would say certainly compared to a more muted FY23, our innovation calendar and our expansion of TAM has been much higher in FY24. So I just want to show you a few advertisements of some of the new innovations that we've launched in the market.
नया गुड नाइट मच्छर अगरबत्ती, बस 2 मिनट में असर शुरू और रूम तैयार। नया गुड नाइट मच्छर अगरबत्ती, इंडिया का एकमात्र गवर्नमेंट रजिस्टर्ड मच्छर अगरबत्ती।
गुड मॉर्निंग मैम, चेकआउट 12 PM पे है।
हम लेट चेकआउट कर सकते हैं?
1 PM,
लॉन्गर?
फिर 2 PM?
पूरे दिन के लिए बुक कर दो। कामा सूत्रा लॉन्ग लास्ट कॉन्डम्स, स्पेशल क्लाइमैक्स डिले लुब्रिकेंट के साथ। I love it when it takes time. Kama Sutra long last condoms.
മനം നിറയെ വെണ്മ, മാനം മുട്ടും നന്മ, പ്രിയ നേതാവിനായി അയ്യോ എന്റെ ഷർട്ട്. ഫാബ് ഗോദ്രേജ് ഫാബ് ലിക്വിഡ് വസ്ത്രങ്ങൾ വൃത്തിയായും ബ്രൈറ്റായും വെക്കുന്നു. എന്റെ മാനവും കാത്തു. ഞാനല്ല, ഗോദ്രേജ് ഫാബ് ലിക്വിഡ് 1 ലിറ്റർ 99 രൂപയ്ക്ക്.
So these were three kind of examples of innovations or TAM expansions that we did last year. To speak to you about our values, I think I'm also relatively new to Godrej. This is my kind of, I'm just, in fact, just almost to the day, 3 years ago, I was announced in GCPL. But the values that I saw in the way the team integrated, I've seen several integrations in the past, the speed, the boldness, but also the way we were able to meet the business case in terms of cutting costs. This was a high overheads business. Very rapidly, we were able to cut the costs of this business, but we still did it with a lot of values and caring. We took a lot of one-time costs to make sure that when we had to retrench employees, we did it in a way that they felt was more than fair, because we felt and I just want to talk to you a little bit, a video which Pradeep, who ran the RCCL integration, just to give you a sense, like Pirosha, the email to Pirosha, on when we do these things, the values that we exhibit.
The RCCL acquisition was announced in the last week of April. On the 8th of May, we had the legal day 1, which left us with less than 2 weeks to organize that. We pulled that off, and from there on, the next 4 months, we had deadlines every 2 to 3 weeks. I think 3 things helped in this process. The first one is project governance. The second one is leadership and planning. The third one is sharp focus on execution.
The acquisition had a business case which was based on certain strategic assumptions. Throughout the integration process, we had to ensure that the reimagined business model is in line with those strategic assumptions, and any deviations were identified in a timely manner.
Me and Ale were actually given the task of managing the integration charter. It was a really mammoth and complex integration exercise. We had about 18 warehouses to be integrated, about 450 SKUs coming in to the GCPL fold. We had about 700 channel partners across multiple channels and about 1,000 vendors working out of multiple locations.
It was not possible to close this entire integration in 3 months without the ownership that was shown by each and every department.
And all of this while the team members were continuing to manage their day jobs and were managers in integration charter over and above.
There are 2 broad themes that we focused on during this integration. The first being less is more. With 18 additional CNFA and 1,000 plus SKUs being added onto the GCPN network, we quickly reduced it down to 150 odd SKUs. The second theme that we focused on was reducing complexity is ensuring simplicity. The integration at manufacturing as well as the suppliers end was completely seamless.
RCCL was like a sprint. So within first 10 days, we had to do the operation day 1, and within next 6 weeks, we had to do the legal day 1, which is the full integration of the system. It was one among the fastest SAP integration program in the industry.
The marketing integration entailed media processes and capability integration, vendor migration and cost synergies, artwork and inventory management, asset transfers. But most importantly, it was about integrating the PAKS brands and team into the GCPL philosophy of marketing.
We had a bouncer called Operational Day 1. Team went by the book, by process and system. In merely 15 days, we were able to achieve what really looked impossible. The operational day was conquered, no issues. I think kudos to our team for showing such agility and teamwork.
During this integration process, Godrej's value of trust, humility and respect served as our guiding light. We tried to balance organizational working principles along with employee context, thereby providing appropriate support to employees depending on their needs. The legal team played a pivotal role in strategizing and structuring the acquisition to ensure a smooth and efficient transfer of business. We ensured that the ownership of the key value driver, that is the intellectual property rights, stood transferred to GCPL on the date of acquisition, leaving no scope for loss of value.
In the end, this was a marathon that we ran like a sprint. We integrated this business in 4 months' time. And while we did all this integration, we ensured that we kept our values at the forefront of this process. But I think the team did a fantastic job of delivering on all of them.
So that was really on RCCL integration. Now let me talk a little bit about our strategy. First is leading through category development. Every company has a kind of model for category development. We have ours. It's a 4-pillar model. The first is relevance. Why should I use the category? That's the most fundamental question actually in category development. The second is access. I want to use this category. It's relevant, but it's too expensive. Can I try it? Availability. Many new categories, retailers are hesitant to keep new categories in their stores because they want their old categories. And trials, which is to force consumers into trying the category at least once. This is what we think are the 4-fold path for category development. Relevance, plenty of good examples. Air has been a good example of relevance in India, where we have basically, the understanding was that people adopt the category when guests come home. And we have then used single-mindedly this idea of guest-ready rooms as the relevance trigger for air care. In Darling in South Africa, we have basically said that the relevance is that it must be as good as a salon fresh on day one, and try and see if we can help consumers avoid going to salons and do it at home themselves. So that has been the relevance trigger in South Africa for hair colors, and plenty of them. For example, in HIT, we have moved both India and Indonesia from efficacy, saying we are 2x and 3x as powerful, to relevance, which is, and the big understanding on dengue is that mothers get really scared when children go to hospital. That's when, because a fever doesn't get mums very worried because they're used to it all the time. But a worry of hospitalization gets mums, and all of us are parents here, it really gets you worried about kids. So the fact that dengue can lead to hospitalization is the relevance trigger for HIT. So this is what I mean by a series of relevance triggers. Access, I think we've had a lot of success in access. A pack which Rajesh again will talk about it, 150 ml, a small HIT aerosol, has taken our HIT growth overall, this along with a few other things we've done. We've grown our HIT business in Indonesia by 50% this year on a CAGR. Last year was a relatively low base, but the CAGR prior to that was 5. But whatever way you look at it in terms of market shares, etc., it's a big jump up. Similarly, hair color, when we launched the 15 rupee SKU, it is now the most widely distributed hair color brand in India. It was very far away from that. There was a brand called Nisha who was the market leader in terms of distribution. And after many years of not growing penetration in this category, last year we've gained 500 bips of penetration on hair color. So this is a good example of taking a 30 rupee great product, bringing it down to 15 and doing well. There have been 1 or 2 misses as well. For example, the liquid vaporizer has not done as well as we wanted it to. And I think the insight here is you must democratize when there is genuine aspiration and energy on the top product. If that energy is not there, so liquid vaporizer, we hope with the new RNF we will get the energy on the top one. But if that doesn't have energy, if that's not something that people really aspire and that's not growing, then it's hard for you to democratize. So that's the kind of lesson. So, these are the lessons every year. You learn a lesson on when do you democratize, when do you not democratize. So that's been, I've not put it here, but that's been a failure or a relatively muted performance. Availability, after a long time, we have gone in because we now feel we have a portfolio which needs category development. And while there are about 300,000 to 400,000 rural outlets where we feel it is unviable for us to cover either directly or even through a substockage system. So we are now setting off what I have not seen, at least the largest rural van operation program, where we will directly go, and I think Nisa showed a photo from that, directly go in vans in ready stock and sell products in ready stock to about 300,000 outlets in rural India. This will almost double our rural coverage. We cover directly about 400,000 outlets with proper rigor in rural. So 300,000 more is almost doubling, a little less than doubling of our rural direct coverage, highly controlled coverage, which is a project called Vistar, and it's a significant investment in terms of direct distribution. It will pay off only in 2-3 years because these are very expensive to do. But we feel that for categories like air care, liquid vaporizer, etc., unless we force distribution in rural outlets, it will not get into a virtuous cycle. So a small video on what we're doing on Vistar. Sorry, can you guys play it? Sorry. Can you the console play? Yeah.
We derive 1/3 of our business from rural, and despite higher growths in rural, our market share lags from urban. The reason is that we have lower weighted distribution in rural across categories. Vistar 2.0 is a step in direction to fix this issue and significantly accelerate our rural growth for coming years. We intend to double our outlet coverage and triple our village coverage through Vistar 2.0 using 700 ready stock vans.
अब जो है ना वैन रूटीन में जा रही है, उससे हमारी सेल भी इंक्रीज हुई है और सबसे बड़ा बेनिफिट ये है कि जो होलसेलर कुछ माल लेते थे, लिमिटेड स्टॉक लेते थे, कुछ वैरायटीज़, अब वो सारी की सारी वैरायटीज़ हमारी जो है ना छोटी से छोटी दुकान पे भी जा रही है, जो बिल्कुल गली में बैठा है।
गोदरेज विस्तार का रिस्पॉन्स मेरे को गांव में अच्छा लग रहा है। जैसे मैं जाता हूँ और दुकानदारों से बात होती है तो बहुत अच्छा लगता है, वो भी खुश है और हम भी खुश हैं।
जब से ये विस्तार गाड़ी आना शुरू हुई है, मेरे को बहुत ज़्यादा बेनिफिट हुआ है। मेरे को पहले गोदरेज का सामान लेने के लिए बहुत दूर जाना पड़ता था, आने जाने में खर्चा लगता था, और ये विस्तार गाड़ी आने के बाद सारा सामान मेरे को बहुत से यहीं पे मिलने लगा है।
उड़ जाए लेके खुशी अपने संग तुझको वहाँ, जन्नत से मुलाकात हो, पूरी हो तेरी हर दुआ, आशाएं खिले दिल की, उम्मीदें हंसे दिल की, अब मुश्किल नहीं कुछ भी, नहीं कुछ भी।
So it's a really large scale distribution program we're doing after a long time. We feel the portfolio is ready. A lot of analysts keep asking, what do you do on distribution? But one only invests in distribution when one gets the basic building blocks or the brands right, which we now feel we have. Now's the time for us to have a distribution expansion. We have also been doing, for the last 2 years, massive sampling. 10 million households we have reached, sampling key categories like household insecticide, which is liquid vaporizer, which as Nisa showed this year, while the growths have been okay, better than the past, we've got significant market share gains. And we're now confident that when the new product comes in, these market share gains will also lead to category growth, but also categories like air care, hair color, all these we're doing direct sampling of consumers. So 10 million, again, is a large cost. I mean, on average, to sample a consumer costs you 30 rupees a call, and your productivity is about 30%. So it's actually 100 rupees is what you invest in actually getting a consumer. So if you do 1 crore households, the investment is close to 100 crores. That's the kind of money that you have to spend to get going here. Similarly, in Indonesia, Rajesh has done something, and for the first time, we've done 1 million households in Indonesia as well. So that's really the story on category development. Across our categories, like I showed you, we are finding significant penetration gains on almost all the categories that we have been putting this market development book. In fact, we don't even measure our own penetration. We measure the penetration of whether the category is moving up because we are the drivers. I think in every single one, we are finding substantial category gain. Next thing is really funded by simplification. So all these investments, and a lot of you have seen, even this quarter, we have significantly continued to increase our spends in marketing. Now with Vistar, another round of spends in marketing, or this time it will be in distribution. So far it's been 2 years of advertising investments. Now we will move to distribution investments. This has been funded primarily by simplification. 4 elements of simplification: SKUs, people, operations, and processes. SKUs, we have reduced our SKUs by about 30%. Even in RCCL, not even, RCCL, as I think someone mentioned there, we've reduced it from 550 SKUs to 100 SKUs. So massive SKU reduction. Reduction, despite the growth in the business, a 10% reduction in the number of managers using modern tools, etc. We've not just not increased, we've actually physically reduced despite the growth in our business. Fewer operations. GOM is a really good example of continuous simplification of the GOM operations. East Africa hair extensions, which was loss-making, we have exited last quarter. West Africa, I think Asif will talk about our international business, where our job is really to simplify and take up our EBITDA margins. We don't do the distribution anymore. We are reassessing the manufacturing footprint. How much of what we make in international geographies can be made in India and exported out is a big question that we're asking. Some of these projects are in play, but we'll announce them with time. And the GOM impairment that we just did, these are all kind of steps in ways to simplify. So this international business, what's India and Indonesia, UVG is the most important metric. In these businesses, actually, cash flow is the most important metric. And we hope that our ROCEs can go and remain at double digits and keep rising from double digits in the next year or two in our international business. Hope we can get to mid-teens very quickly in terms of EBITDA margins in our international business. Simpler processes, many examples of simpler processes, but one really good example is the way we have simplified advertising. It's a good example of less is more. We have moved, in India now we are spending more than 1,000 crores in advertising, up from 350, 400 crores a few years ago. It's a huge increase. What we were realizing is that across the world, categories were being run across the world differently. Advertising agencies were different. Production was being done differently. So it was not just an additional cost, but it was also, we were not taking the best from one part of the world to another part of the world. Everybody was doing pretty much, and everyone was reinventing the wheel. So from multiple categories, we have a global category structure with Rob heading it. Multiple briefs, we have single briefs because consumer tasks are the same. You want to, for example, guest-ready rooms is a global insight, whether it's Indonesia, India, or South Africa, right? So those insights are the same. Multiple agencies moved it to a single agency, which is our own agency, Lightbox. 10 people running Lightbox, churning out ads for across the world. And from multiple executions, we are moving to single executions, shooting them differently in the same location with different models for different countries. So it's become a super efficient process in the context of massive advertising increase. So this is a good example of less is more as well. And there's been an overall saving of 40 BPS of our margins have come from just this efficiency of the advertising process. So many, many processes we're looking at, because this is not cost that consumers value, right? So why do you want to spend this? 40 BPS is a lot of money on the scales that we're talking about. So just a short video on something we're all very proud of, which is certainly CPG's or FMCG's first in-house advertising studio.
Here at GCPL, we've been up to something a little bit different. At the start of last year, we set up our very own advertising agency. We built a team of world-class creatives to take charge of our entire global portfolio. We call it the Lightbox. And we've been busy, really busy, coloring hair in Argentina, making rooms smell beautiful in Indonesia, washing a lot of clothes in India, relaxing hair in Nigeria, weaving our magic in South Africa, sprinkling plenty of magic. Oh, and killing mosquitoes just about everywhere. No mosquito is safe with us around. While our brands may differ across the world, we have found human insights are often global. So, with over 25 films across 7 countries and lots of greens in our pockets in just 1 year, we are ready to shine more creative light within and outside the box.
So really kind of out of the box way of quality improvement, cost savings, but it requires being bold, right? Having 10 people running, it's a very different system of running advertising than how the industry does it. So that's really about our strategy, just to give you a flavor of category development and simplification. 2 charts on our operating philosophy. We're embedding this across the organization. Our guidance to our teams is, when faced with a decision, go back to the operating philosophy. Less is more. I've given you examples, but our manufacturing footprint between FY24 and 26 will reduce by 40%. 40% less factories. Consumer first, business second. You all saw in FY23 that despite the cost inflation, we didn't cut back on media. Rajesh will talk about a case study where we have increased our dosage of active in Indonesia. One of the big drivers of success is that Rajesh took the call of increasing the dosage of actives by 5x. There was a loss in gross margins. We said we'll take it and save the cost elsewhere, but it's the right thing to do by consumers, and we'll figure out margins later. Tomorrow before today, investing in advertising and publicity, you all have seen this. We've put 1,000 crores of capex in India in 2 manufacturing sites, which we think will be world-class manufacturing sites, serving not just India, but hopefully over a period of time, the globe. People and planet alongside profit. I think we are seen in India as a highly sustainable and responsible company, but not yet by global standards. So we would like to get onto the DGSC. We would like to get onto a better rating in MSCI. And I think there is work to be done for us to be seen as a globally sustainable company. I think one example that I would like to talk about is the 5th principle, which is think local, act global. And just so many examples I spoke to you about. For example, LV, we moved it to Bangladesh and Indonesia, and it's boomed for us. We'll just go back. Here's some fancy slides. Okay. So, and it's the LV is done well. Aero was an idea. Aero and even Airmatic. Many of you will now have, I see a lot of Airmatic in consumers' house, the one that goes push in your, scares you when you're sleeping and it's there in the room. That one has moved from Indonesia to India. Then we've moved shampoo hair color from India to Latin America. We have a reasonably good business in Latin America on hair color. We were not the pioneers of shampoo hair color in India, but in many countries, we seem to be the pioneer in bringing shampoo hair color. And the interesting thing is, we took the shampoo hair color to Latin America. Lightbox, sitting in Bombay, made the ad for Latin America. That ad was so good that we tested it in India and Indonesia, and it has tested really well for us in India and Indonesia. So I think a lot of people in the past, analysts, see global GCPL as, why don't you guys just get your act to India? But if you can simplify and structure the business well, there's a lot that can be gained for being a global multinational in FMCG, as we're seeing here, simply because you can take trends and products from across the world and move them to different countries. So this is really a Issue A ad made by Lightbox for Latin America. And I think the Indian version of that is probably there after this as well.
Vamos, Flor. Me tengo que teñir. Dame 5 minutos. ¿Teñirte el pelo? ¿En 5 minutos? No hay chance. Tenés que mezclarlo, aplicarlo, esperar. En serio, Flor, vamos a llegar tarde. ¿Por qué nunca estás lista? Hola, ¿estás ahí? Flor, te va a llevar por lo menos 1 hora, ¿entendés? ¿Cómo hiciste?
Isu Express, nueva tintura en shampoo. Cobertura total de canas en 5 minutos.
Hey bro, కిందికి రా వెళ్దాం.
5 నిమిషాలు ఆగు. జుట్టుకి కలర్ వేసుకోవాలి.
హెయిర్ కలర్. ఇప్పుడు అది 5 నిమిషాల్లో. నో ఛాన్స్. హలో. ఏంటి కట్ అయిందా? నువ్వు ఎప్పుడు లేట్ చేస్తావు. నువ్వు 5 నిమిషాలు అంటావు కానీ 5 నిమిషాలు కానీ ఎలా?
Godrej Selfie Shampoo Hair Color. Shampoo పూసుకున్నంత ఈజీగా 5 నిమిషాల్లోనే తెల్ల జుట్టు మాయం.
So again, this universal insight that friends hold you up, and there are always in a group this friend who says, I'm coming 5 minutes late. It works in Indonesia, it works in Chile, Argentina, and India as well. So that's really on our operating philosophy to give you a flavor of how we will run it. And every year I'll talk to you a few more examples of these. Our measures, industry-beating UVG. I think on almost all the cells that we operate and that matter to us, we are gaining market share. Even in household insecticide in India, we are slightly losing on the overall category because of the salience of incense stick. But in every other subcategory like electrics, we're gaining. And I'm 100% sure that this year, in fact, next quarter onwards, we will gain share in household insecticide now that we're entering incense sticks. So I think the only one which is we probably need to do a little better at is also the air freshener business in Indonesia, which has also gained share in the last 3-4 months, and it's on its way up. But I would broadly share that both sales and shares are doing extremely well. Sorry. So the next one is more spends on brands and less on cost to serve. I think now GCPL is the 5th largest advertiser in India. This is across sectors, after I think Levers, Reckitt's, Amazon, and Reliance. So we're now and at the same time, you know, supply chain costs, I spoke to you about non-working media costs, but many items of costs like supply chain costs are funding this investment in advertising. More automation and less working capital, we will increase our capex. FY24 is 200 crores. FY25 will be even higher as these new factories come into play. Our working capital days has gone down from 50 to 38 in India. Now we are close to best in class in terms of inventory. I think the next milestone, FY25, is that in India and Indonesia, we feel like we should be at high single digits, higher than 7. 7 is at the lower end of high single digits. I think we should be at the higher end of high single digits growth in terms of volumes. And I think the rest of the world, we shouldn't look too much at volume growth and growth. We should look at profitability and cash flow. So this is a bifurcated strategy of India, Indonesia, which we look at as a cluster, and the rest of the world we look at as cash generation for us. So I think with that, the first section ends. We have a short tea break. I think while the tea break, where's Venkat? Is Venkat around? Okay. What we're going to do now is, I think Venkat is we're going to do a demonstration for you. One is to show you some of the innovations on the left-hand side. 2 is to kind of demonstrate the RNF molecule. So there are 2 cages that we have built. One has got our existing liquid vaporizer, and the second one has got the new liquid vaporizer. It's unorthodox to show it to analysts before we launch it, but we're doing it because we're going to launch it in a month's time. We've got all the permissions and production is starting. But what Venkat will do is he will turn on both those for 10 minutes, and you will be able to see with your own eyes how much more effective RNF is than TFT. TFT is the molecule that everybody uses in liquid vaporizers. RNF is the new molecule. So those of you who want to see mosquitoes can go there. Those of you who want to eat vada pav can go here. Okay, welcome back after the mosquito and tea break. As you can see, we gave strict instructions to the mosquitoes in the RNF chamber to get knocked down in 10 minutes. But there is, jokes apart, a pretty dramatic difference between the two. I mean, it also possibly explains a lot of our story in household insecticide over the last 5 years. So I'm going to talk about FY25 and the year forward, but I just thought I'd get a small recording of my favorite poem, which inspires me periodically for you guys to hear.
Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep. and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
Thanks. That was Robert Frost himself saying his most famous poem. So I think in the context, GCPL FY 25, 26 and on, many promises to keep. We're now going to break this section up into three parts. We covered what we've done so far, strategy, promises, etc. I'm going to talk about India, which I double hat as CEO. Rajesh is going to talk about Indonesia, and Asif is going to talk about our international business, Latin America, US, Africa, etc. So India is, as you know, our largest business. I think the macro situation in India for consumption as things stand today is not great. I hope it turns in the next 6 to 8 months. But what we do know for FY24 is while GDP growth is 7.5%, consumption growth, which is more closely correlated to FMCG, is only 3%, and agriculture growth is 0.5%. One of the numbers that really shocked me was that the top 20% of Indians contribute to 90% of savings. So you can have a situation where 5% of this group grows a lot, they are saving a lot, and you have asset price inflation, and then the balance 20%. So a small cohort of 4-5% potentially knowledge workers can actually drive up all of GDP simply by an asset price inflation. But what we do think is that the bottom 40% of India, and even the middle 40%, if one correlates agriculture, if one sees rural growths, if one sees various things in our own portfolio, core categories, where definitely there's a pyramid difference between the top and the bottom. If this changes, it's good for us, but we have to plan in India assuming that this doesn't change. So we've got to still grow even if this is the shape of the Indian economy, which it may or may not be, but that's how we have to plan for it. And so what we want to do is for FY25 at least, and perhaps 26, we have a three-pronged strategy. One is to focus our energy and investments on premiumization. That's step one. And premiumization, as I was speaking to a few people over tea, includes things like Fab, which is laundry liquids. At the bottom of the pyramid, I saw an excellent chart that Kantar had presented over the last decade, which said that there's been a general slowdown in volumes over the last decade in rural India compared to the prior decades. But categories and companies that have grown have had a wide swing in rural. So rural, while it is under pressure, there is a potential for a wide swing, and really we want to focus on affordability in rural. And the middle of the pyramid, we want to really focus on efficiency, and so just squeezing out costs. And that's broadly a threefold strategy for FY25: premiumization, efficiency, and affordability. In premiumization, lots of premium innovation. We're also now finding a complete cycle of this top 20%. They live in kind of more and more gated communities. They are watching connected television, and they are shopping on e-commerce and modern trade. So this seems to be this 20%, which is 300 million Indians, probably GDP per capita of $6,000, $6,500. So kind of something like a Malaysia or a Thailand, but 5 times the size. So some of the big innovations that we have, one we're particularly bullish about is body wash. We think that soaps has to upgrade into body wash. That upgradation has been pretty slow over the last 20 years, but there has been some growth in the last 2 years. Our fundamental insight on body wash is that those of you who use body washes, how many people here use body wash on a daily basis? Yeah, so this is certainly a high-income group. And if in a high-income group you have 30% penetration or 25% penetration of body wash, it tells you that it's not affordability but something else. And that something else, when you speak to consumers, they will tell you that body wash leaves a slimy feel on the body, whereas soaps leaves a squeaky clean feel on the body. That's the basic difference in our understanding. And therefore, the slimy feel works well in certain markets and certain temperatures, but not elsewhere. So we have formulated, we're not going to tell you what we've done, but we have formulated a body wash which we think mimics the benefits of soap in terms of squeaky clean, but a much superior sensorial in terms of foam and fragrance. So I'd encourage all of you, we just launched it, I think a few days ago on May 1st in e-commerce, and we're now going to launch it in Tamil Nadu as well. So Tamil Nadu plus e-commerce, we're very, very serious about, because we think this soaps category has a lot of runway of growth if we convert it to body wash. A lot of people have been saying, guys aren't doing enough with Synthol, etc. So this is what we're going to do with Synthol, and I would say it's as big, if not bigger, a move than even things like our move in laundry, etc. So do try the product. I think it's in your goodie bag. Do try the product, and if you like it, message me. If you don't, don't. Then air fresheners, I think this Aero I already spoke about. Again, it's a membrane-based technology. It's not easy. Sheila was saying that these products can be copied easily. Neither the body wash nor this is that easy to copy, nor for that matter, by the way, is fab. I mean, everything can be copied over a period, but they do have product advantages. This one changes color as the fragrance reduces. It's a membrane-based technology inspired by a product in Indonesia. And then we already spoke about our most important, actually, relaunch, which all of you saw there. And you saw the difference between TFT and RNF and how different the performance was, which is the liquid vaporizer. So there are a couple more coming, but I don't want to talk about things that are coming in the future. Even this one actually is unorthodox because we're doing this in June, but since we're doing it in June, it's so important, we're sharing it right away. Premiumization, of course, one is having premium innovations, two is to play in premium categories. We have been very pleasantly surprised by a product called Long Last in condoms, which is a premium condoms. This market was basically, the premium part of condoms has been a one-player game. We have now doing extremely well on the back of this. Post the launch, post the integration, like many categories, for a few months we lost market share on both these categories because of changing distributors, etc. But we have rapidly seen share gains and rapid growth in sexual wellness. So compared to where we were a little earlier, where we were this thing, we now seem to be very confident that condoms is a really exciting category going forward. Liquid detergents, I already spoke about. China in 2007 was a powder market, $4 billion of powder. 2022, it was an $8 billion market, 4 billion powder, 4 billion liquid. Market leader in liquid was a brand called Blue Moon, which operates below what the global competitors operate. So we believe, again on Fab, we believe that despite its lower price, in our own consumer testing, we find it parity with a lot of the premium liquids. And we have some know-how which is in-house between us and GIL. So one of the advantages of a group is GIL has a lot of knowledge of surfactancy, and our R&D works closely with GIL in surfactancy. So we believe this is a product, is a really good product. One of the reasons it's doing well is consumers are wowed by the product at the price of $99. And then we are also finding that fine fragrances, which is a small business that we acquired from Raymond's, is also booming. We've got to get our mix right. Without getting our mix fully right, we are seeing a lot of growth in fine fragrances. But this is largely an e-commerce play, but we are finding that this category also has the potential to become big. And Park Avenue, we're finding, is a surprisingly strong equity in the whole male fragrances space and lends well to expansion into fine fragrances. So these are examples of increasing our TAM by getting into, and when we say premium, you have to remember premium in India is 300 million consumers, right? So it's not like super premium we're talking about. Premium channels, I think two. One is both modern trade and e-commerce. As I told you, it's becoming a closed circuit where you stay, what you watch, and where you shop, which it plays well to us. We can communicate, we can have e-commerce launches. For example, body wash, we are launching in e-commerce plus Tamil Nadu. So e-commerce we communicate through connected TV, and Tamil Nadu we can connect and digital. You can basically cover off e-commerce through digital communication. And just Tamil Nadu you can cover through linear TV. So both these are growing really rapidly, and we are making very, very high share gains. For example, in DMart, we are close to 40% share in deodorants, and this is after we have come in. So these are the categories where we are rapidly trying to build share. So our job in these, so we don't give targets, to be honest, to our teams on e-commerce salience, and you give channel salience targets, it becomes an issue. But at an underlying level, and DMart's a really good measure because it's easy to measure what's going on. We are very, very focused on building market share in these channels of the future. We are also creating 2 new channels, OTC, which is basically building on the back of what RCCL had, but frankly, a much bigger and better OTC channel, and that has really given us success in condoms, which we're happy about. And also a cosmetics channel. One of the things perhaps we could have done a little better in the RCCL launch is there are many cosmetic outlets we were covering, and RCCL was also covering, but we were a distribution system. RCCL was a sales system in those same outlets. But when we looked at it numerically, we said, hey, both of us go to these outlets, let one person go, but there is a difference between a distribution system and a sales system. A sales system is physically selling, doing marketing at the point. A distribution system is only catering to demand. That I think was an error we made. We have now taken that back, and we are setting up an independent cosmetics channel, which will take deodorants, but also hair color, and a lot of our other innovations. We have a lot of other products in the pipeline which we weren't bringing to the market because we didn't have a cosmetics channel. So these are the 2 premium channels we are going to invest along with rural. We're going to invest feet on street and a fully different channel for these 2. So that's really on premiumization. The second thing is on efficiency, and I think there are several rounds of efficiency. I'm only going to talk about 2. The first one is to have a more efficient supply chain. I don't think consumers value how much we spend on our supply chain. And we have a plan to simplify our supply chain dramatically into 2 very large factories, reduce our distances, reduce our energy consumption, reduce our labor, and give us the fuel. So this 1,000 crores that we're putting is not just for the capacity we see because of volumes, but we also see it driving efficiency in terms of margins. So we do think over the next 2-3 years in India, there's 200 to 250 bips of margin that can come from this, compensating for some of the tax losses that we will have to bear as we go forward. On efficiency, I think on media, we now have our own proprietary media algorithm. We have hired with us right now who heading media. Media is still not, we still have a partner who's an external partner. It's not quite like Lightbox, but a lot of the planning we're doing with proprietary internal tools. We hired the CEO of Mindshare Fulcrum, which is the largest media agency actually in India. So the CEO has joined us as heading media because with 1,000 crores of investment in India and another couple of 100 crores globally, growing at 15 to 20%, we felt we needed to be on top of this. What we have done in FY24 versus 23 is that CPRP inflation, we think is in the low single digits. 3 to 4% was media inflation last year. We reduced our CPRPs by 6%. So the media increase you're seeing is much less than the GRP increase that we got. This is partly done through superior planning and through a proprietary tool that we have, and partly done because of the scale and the ability to negotiate better. So this is an example. There's another example on below the line and BTL, where also we now feel we need to get more efficiencies there. So all these basic core things, supply chain, media spending, BTL, we will squeeze out efficiencies there so that we can invest in premiumization and democratization. I think on democratization, as I already said, we will double our outlet coverage and treble our village coverage in FY25. It's a big, big delta. We want to put 700 vans into the market. As we speak, I think 250 are already there. And this quarter, we will move to 500, and the next quarter to 700 vans. So it's a big plan for rural reach. And we will continue the affordability journey. As and when I don't want to talk about things we haven't done yet, but as and when we find products of reaching a critical scale, then it's the time for us to democratize. And we did Rich Creme in 22, 23 we did LMD, 24 we've done Agarbatti, 25 we have 1 or 2 things which are planned, which we will talk to you about once we do it. I think on Kama Sutra and Park Avenue, we are broadly on track with expectations. On deodorants, slightly below my own expectations. I think deodorants, deodorants and fragrances is a category that's going to be massive in 2040. There's no two ways about it. It is unfortunately a category that has growth, but it's not very well structured in India. So our responsibility is to structure that category. That structuring may take a little bit of time. Other things like channels, cosmetics, etc. Condoms, on the other hand, is a fast growth and well-structured category. So I would say my own scorecard for RCCL is excellent in terms of integration, excellent in terms of cost pullout, good in terms of condoms and perfumes, but deodorants, I would still say some work to be done. Our task, as we committed, is to get to an EPS neutral situation by the second half of this year. That's what it is, so that this acquisition gets into the black by the end of this year. So really, what's our medium-term aspiration in India? High single-digit, higher than 7 actually. And aspiration is to see how we can inch closer and closer to 10. I mean, to get to 10, we're going to have to, there are two things that are going to have to happen. One is the TAM and the innovations, all that's already happening. One is we are going to have to convert soaps into body wash. And two, which will take some time. And two, which I think we're on the cusp of, we've got to get household insecticide close to double-digit growth. If you do these two, plus the really rapid growth on TAM and the new categories we're entering, innovations, that's what will take us to double-digit volume. So at least the problem definition is clear for us in terms of what we need to do. Our EBITDA margin is already in the, I think this year, about 27 or 28% in India. I think that's roundabout all right in terms of our aspirations. So I think that's really a brief overview of what India is planning to do. I think I'll hand over now to Rajesh to talk about Indonesia.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Let me talk you through about the next big opportunity within GCPL, which is Indonesia. I think it's truly a crowning jewel in the business. Probably lost its luster a bit, and we are in the path of shining it up a little more. The long-term journey of the business has had a checkered way of performance. The country per se has been pretty robust. COVID has had an impact in many parts of the world, so did it in Indonesia. But it's bounced back. The GDP is back to the nominal levels of 5%. But our performance has not been in sync with the way the business should be in the market. And there are some good and bad things. We have a great portfolio. In fact, I would say we cover so many home care needs within the portfolio, because the portfolio of Indonesia is largely what you see in India, but also many things which are unique to Indonesia. So there are many things we do in terms of covering the requirements of home care. I'm not sure how many of you know that we have this brand called Chap Kaja, which is a rat trap glue. It's a sizable brand, it's a very powerful brand, and it's a homegrown brand. So there are lots of these unique jewels sitting inside that business, besides, of course, mirroring the global, many parts of the global portfolio. And the good thing is, in many of the businesses we operate in, we sit in the leadership position within the subcategories in which we operate. So we are a very strong portfolio, very strong positions in the categories we play, and the opportunity lies in the fact that almost in every part of our business which we operate, with any subsegment which we operate, the total category penetration maxes out at 23 to 25%, and it goes as low as 6%. So there are far greater opportunities for category expansion and putting the right 6 Ps in place for driving category expansion and winning in the long term. And that is the core of the story of Indonesia as you go into the future. There has also been a set of inherent weaknesses, and I would call them structural weaknesses, which probably has not helped us realize our true potential in the market. One of the most fundamental weaknesses is when you are in an under-penetrated category, you actually need a lot more investment for building category penetration, especially when you're sitting on the leadership position of the category. For a long period of time, we were a sub 3% media investment business. So it doesn't do justice to the opportunity in the market. The second part of the business is it's a business which is fairly large on modern trade contribution. The market is about, the total CPG market will operate between 60-40, depending on the category, to 50-50. We've had a history of about 75-25, coming now closer to 70-30, and probably will become more in line with the market as time comes by. And when we have been on a very large modern trade setup, for those of you who've seen modern trade setup outside of India, where there's an MRP and the world outside doesn't have an MRP, the price is controlled by the retailer, you could go wrong in cross-pricing, cross-channel pricing. And that was one of the fundamental problems we've had in the business, that the range of price cap between different channels was quite erratic. So that actually put a vortex of downward spiral on how does the business work outside the modern trade channel. So the modern trade channel got deep discounted. It actually had a deeper impact on the rest of the business because we didn't have much to play on the distribution side of the business. The other complexity we carried, and probably right at the beginning of the company, way back when it was originated but lost its relevance over a period of time, is we used to carry a branch model. A branch model is nothing but going to a large set of retail outlets operating through your own branch operations. So we've had within the island of Java 12 locations of branches, a large number of people operating those branches. And the day job is to get orders from the outlet, deliver orders, collect cash, and manage stocks through the outlet. You can imagine in a CPG business, which typically does about 10 to 15 SKUs sell into a retail outlet, for the size of a retail outlet, it's never economical to do it on your own because that's not a model in which you can thrive. And so our costs were sitting incorrectly. Our decisions on pricing was driven by structurally what we saw as an opportunity, which was not the right thing. So we had gone into a downward vortex of blocking ourselves to getting our true potential. And one of the big journeys was obviously to say, in the CPG industry, you need to step up and become a lot more distribution focused. But you know, the underlying fact of a distribution focused organization is fair pricing across channels. Otherwise, the distributor gets undercut by something else which is far more cheaper. So the first bullet we had to bite was to tackle the deep discounting bullet. The chart on the left side gives you the journey of the difference in pricing on our lead pack, and I'll talk about why Aerosol 600, that's our lead pack of the business. The difference in pricing between the lead pack in modern trade and in general trade used to operate anything between 26 to 35%. And it used to operate there quite frequently. And there were other costs associated with it, which goes as the back end of the modern trade channel, which also used to come into play as you start driving the business. And that actually fundamentally prevented our distribution business to grow because the RDs were never viable with this kind of a pricing model. So we took a hard call sometime around November, December of 22, had to bite the bullet in terms of its impact on the business. But I think that fundamentally has helped us get two things right. The business itself realized its true potential in aerosols, and the structure enabled a lot more other things to be solved for. And while doing all of this, Sudhir spoke about the product investment, and I'll touch upon it in a moment, but we realized that we are wasting a lot of money by doing this erratic pricing, so which got flowed into margins after investing for all the product improvement we had to do. So it was a structural correction we have done on the home insecticides aerosol business. There are 4 or 5 parts of the business which had this problem. Almost everything has been dealt with. So it's been a journey of 1 year of putting the right basics in the market in the way we run the business. The second big thing which followed the pricing decision was to move to a redistribution-based model. So our business was largely split into 3 contributions. 30% of the business used to go into 2 very large customers. Many of you know, if you know Indonesia, there are 2 large customers, Indomart and Alfamart. They were 30% of the business. 30% of the business going into what we call as the RD model, the traditional RD model, and the remaining 30% sits in the direct branch operations. And by definition, we were all focused so much on the big direct-to-market business, the RD business was not in focus. Pricing didn't help us. So it never came to fruition that we could drive a better distribution system. The moment we put right the pricing logic, we then took the journey of actually moving out of all the 12 branches, and a large number of our own people had to be parted ways with. And we set up the entire business as purely as a direct-to-customer modern trade business and a distribution business. So all the migration of the branch system to the RD system, we managed to migrate it within 3.5 months. Now we purely operate on a traditional model of e-com, modern trade, and distribution model. So that's the system we have in the business. Now, what has helped is an initial jump in the total universe of outlets covered. But what has also helped is a lot more distributors have become a lot more profitable now because of the way we've handled the business. We've given a fair bit of chunk of business back to the distributors. So once the distributors started getting scale, we started demanding a lot more sales efficiency. So our assortment within outlets started going up. The range we sell started getting better represented in each of the retail outlets. So that's the part of the business we're seeing the value emerge, and that's just the first year. We're just 1 year into that journey, and we believe there's a lot more to get out in that space. We spoke about categories being underpenetrated, and media didn't do justice to our opportunity. And since FY22, we are consciously stepping up on media. We probably are still some distance away on what is the true level of media we need to be in the business. Unilever in the market is about 10 times our size and operates about 7.5–8% of NSV in terms of media investment. So we still have a journey to go, but I think we are in the right journey. We are extracting value from unwanted spaces and putting behind the spaces that matter, which is media and investments in category development. What the journey of transition from the branch operations, etc., has also helped us simplify our organization. We're seeing that play out in terms of FOH. The FOH has gone down by about 120 BPS. We also have reduced a lot of wasteful SKUs which weren't making too much of impact in the business. So that's about 25% reduction in the business. So the journey of simplification is also getting embedded in the business. We believe a year or more or so is still there to be squeezed out in this space. So all of this has resulted in probably a respectable financial year of last year. After many years of relatively muted performance, we're seeing a first full year of double-digit UVG and revenue growth of 14% and profit growth. And we believe, unlike moments in the past, this has come on foundations being built on the right structures of how to do the business. And hence, we believe this is setting itself up for a repeatable model. What has driven this is the story of HI, and I'll talk to you about that in a bit more detail, and also the exploding opportunity of hair colors. Shampoo hair colors in particular has done exceptionally well, and the great part of that is we were underserved in terms of stock availability. We had issues of supply through many parts of the year, but despite that, we managed to gallop these two categories very well. What we have a big job to be done in terms of homework for us as a business is our business in air care, and we are a leader in air care. We are a very strong brand in air care, but our business is not done well last year. Some structural issues, because this is a discretionary category in Indonesia, and Indonesia, while the optics of inflation is low, a huge spike happened in terms of rice pricing and fuel pricing in the market through last year. That had impacted consumption significantly. And we also were in the journey of rationalizing a huge amount of tail SKUs, which probably took a knock of a couple of percentage points of growth on the business. But we're seeing the annualization of that and the benefit of retaining a smaller core, which is now beginning to grow much faster. A bit on the HI story. So the Indonesian business is a little lopsided in the way it runs the HI business. We have a huge base of aerosol, a very small business of LV, unlike in India. And there are certain fundamental reasons for that. And the evolution of the category has made it that way, that aerosol becomes the primary format of consumption for most consumers. They kind of dose it in a closed room for 15 minutes and then enter the room and use it as an overnight format as well. So there's a bit of a different way the category works in that country. For a long time, we had a very good product, but a product which probably carried a bit of technical weakness against one of the lead competitors, which is Vape from Fumakila, in a certain set of consumers. So sometime in late 2022, we decided that it's important to put the best product out from us in the market. So that was an investment we took with a bit of boldness. We invested a lot of product in the formulation and jacked it up by 4 times in terms of its efficacy. It came at a cost, but like I spoke in the previous slides, there were a lot of costs being hidden in unwanted spaces of the business. So we are confident that doing this is the right thing, and we were confident that we can extract value from somewhere where it was getting wasted. So that is how the mix got reoriented. LV as a business, the total LV portfolio of LV as a category operates only at about 7% penetration annually. Significantly under-penetrated format in that market traditionally has been a coil and spray business. For the last 2 years, we set right the price-value equation, and 2 years in a row, we are seeing the benefit of that. So we continue to step up on the play of LV in the business. There's a bit of a portfolio refresh. I'll show you a video which kind of captures the full story of that. We've stepped up investments of media and also driven access. Sudhir spoke about the 12,000 rupiah pack. It's a 150 ml can. When we entered the market with that can, we used to go to, let's say, X number of outlets. We've jacked it up to 1.4x. The volumes in that business from the time of start to now is about 3 times the volumes we've started. So a lot of low-income consumers are beginning to adopt that format, and the distribution system getting set right is helping us now go and put the products into the smaller outlets in a more structured manner. And again, Sudhir touched upon this. Because the job is for category development, there's a clear job of upgrading from coil users to LV users, and also coil users to the small pack of aerosol. We've invested a lot of money in going home to home, direct to consumers, learning from the Indian model of how to do it, and executed. We've touched about 1 million households last year. We believe we've learned how to do it right, and we will now probably scale it up to 3 to 4 million households in the coming year. So we're scaling up from the learnings we've had on how to get our mix of category development right in this business. Let me show you a short video on the story of HIT for last year. Sorry, Aditya.
Since its launch in 1996, HIT is now present in 1/4 of Indonesian consumer homes. Against mosquito problems, consumers look to protect themselves through overnight protection and instant protection. The biggest opportunity in this market remains as premiumization of consumers, shifting from coils to aerosols and liquid vaporizer. The solution: superior and convenient products for consumers' homes. HIT Aerosol, HIT Liquid Vaporizer. However, in the past 3 years till 2022, HIT had seen a muted performance with a decline in growth and penetration. While the category was gaining momentum, HIT LV was growing at nominal rates. HIT Aerosol was also facing an aggressive competition with the launch of strong products, aggressive pricing, and new fragrances from its competitors. Aside from that, HIT Aerosol was playing in 2 platforms with different formulation, leading to confusion for consumers. Our game plan is to win more consumers and drive penetration. HIT LV, the game plan. First, get the price right. Our consumers look for an affordable solution. Second, sharpen the communication to create stronger relevance of family protection. HIT Aerosol. The game plan is to accelerate through 6 P's rejuvenation. First, we are invested in improving our product formulation with 4 times higher efficacy and win against competitor. Second, a simplified variant architecture from a 2-layered to a single range architecture. Third, pricing disparity was going up to as high as 35% across channels. Therefore, ensuring price parity across channels and right pricing within channels is important. Fourth, Hit Aerosol 150 milliliters has increased our distribution from 70,000 outlets to more than 100,000 outlets. Fifth, dengue being a major concern in Indonesia, Hit Aerosol communication is now tailored around the sphere of dengue with Hit Aerosol as the hero of instant kill solution. Sixth, supported by a strong home-to-home approach of sampling and trials, 1 million homes was reached in FY24. The strategic approach for both Hit Aerosol and Hit LV has extended a positive impact to the performance of other formats. This year, Hit as a total brand grew 28%, with a penetration increase of 90 bips. Hit LV grew 81% and Hit Aerosol grew 23%. A promising future lies ahead for Hit, with a significant opportunity to grow penetration and build brand franchise. Aligned to its brand purpose, Hit stays on its journey to protect Indonesia from mosquitoes and dengue.
So that's the story of Hit, and we believe that lies within the story a repeatable model. We do the same things more often and more in a better manner. We'll keep growing the brand. So that's the story of 24. If we step into 25, three big actions from our side. One is to continue to build on the momentum we've started last year on Hit and do a lot better and a lot more in bigger scale so that we can get the real value of the mix. The second one is air care as a portfolio needs a bit of a rejuvenation. I'll talk a bit about that in a minute. And continue to scale up hair colors. It's a large hair color market as compared to India, but still much better in terms of opportunity because only 20% of the population uses hair color. So the penetration opportunity is huge. So the business is going to drive three simple tasks of growth agenda, and the two are on a good wicket. I think a moment on air care. So our air care portfolio actually is fairly advanced. It's actually in an hourglass shape. We have a huge bottom of the pyramid solution called Stella Solids, which covers 35% of the business. A huge top of the pyramid solution, which is Stella Matic, which is the automatic device, which is 35% of the business. Between them, the pricing is 1:7. And the middle has a lot of little things, but nothing structurally enabling a transition or an upgradation which is possible. Two big insights in the market. One is people seek instant solution under malodor situations, and one is people seek continuous pleasure in terms of daily use. A big innovation coming our way to drive the upgradation agenda from the bottom, but also answer an affordable continuous solution, which is the Stella LV, which is like the Hit liquid vaporizer, but the same is coming in Stella at an affordable price. It comes on a per night usage basis on a refill alone cost, the same cost as the bottom of the pyramid solid. So it's a huge opportunity for us to upgrade the market with a much better solution in terms of experience. The second one is, it's a market which is underdeveloped for instant solutions. The instant solutions are hand aerosols, probably solved by the Matic device at the top, but too much of a price premium catering to the top end of the market. We believe we can open up the market for instant solutions at the affordable end, which is somewhere of 1.5, 2x of the bottom of the pyramid play of solids. So that is the next big action from our side. And the third big action is winning on the Stella pocket. So the pockets which is transferred from here has been an underperforming business. 6 years, it's remained a very small contribution of our business. But we realized that the price value equation to the consumer wasn't right. So we reset the price value equation as of half to last year. We're beginning to see a huge traction for that. Because from a regular hanging format for pleasurable use on an ongoing basis, this is the best format available. But we weren't leveraging the potential of this format with the wrong pricing in the market. So we reset that as well. So these three actions focused on driving category penetration in the different niche states is a big bet on Stellar to rejuvenate the mix as we go into next year. We continue to go hard on shampoo hair colors. We've had a history of good start on shampoo hair colors, but we were not serving the market adequately with supply. So we now have a local factory which comes fully on stream from July, which can serve the entire local Indonesian requirement fully. So we believe that will not only unlock capacity, but also agility. We can do a lot more with color choices which are more relevant in the market, and releases a bit of margins as well to play it hard. Sudhir talked about transference of global ad ideas, and with this version of the Argentinian ad on Ishwe, the Indonesian version just tested well. We're going to put that out in the market so that we can build on the same insight as Sudhir spoke. And we see that, again, like I spoke earlier, a stronger distribution system now enables the product to go in a more structured manner into a lot more outlets. So that's the agenda of growth on shampoo hair colors. So if I were to round off, a respectable start of last year, foundations put in place, foundations which will help repeatable performance. We believe a good near-term look for the business is continue to do a high single-digit volume growth and operate in this mid-20s of profitability. Thank you. Asif.
Put the mic on. Audible? Okay, great, thanks. So, when Sudhir said, why don't you take the business update in terms of the west of India, I thought it's easy. Been working now for 10 months in the company, worked with the business heads, Dhanesh, Jose. But the most difficult slide was the first slide. I mean, Sudhir started off K-shape, India GDP 7.5, Rajesh, long-term trend, 5% GDP. I had to speak about something in terms of the external environment. Struggled to talk about that. Yeah. So it is a wild west in a way, which we deal with. Huge amount of external volatility. I've been kind of working with these markets since 2010, around 14, 15 years, when I kind of started establishing the Treasury Center for Africa. It is tough business environment. Yeah. Within 3-4 months, typically you see these changes in a year and a half, but in Africa, in LATAM, you see these in quarters. High interest rates, it puts a very difficult situation in terms of trade, the kind of stock they hold. The movement in currencies, which makes it very, very difficult to kind of work through pricing, margins. The example in terms of the last, I would say 4 months in terms of how the Naira has behaved. 1200 to 1900, 1900 to pretty much 1100, 1100 to 1300 as we speak. So that's the kind of volatility. It's easy to price on one-way street, but when you have that kind of volatility, very difficult to deal with the business. And obviously, they say Africa never sleeps in terms of news. There is always some country where there is election, there is some country where there are changes. So having said that, I think that's something which we take as given, because if you're going to kind of use this as a reason for where we are, it's not going to work. And hence, I think external volatility is something which is given. We need to kind of simply adopt it and work our business models, which can allow us to flourish here. So I think that's the first message I'll leave. Second would be really historical complexity. I think within GCPL, if the complexity was high, I think it was highest in the Wild West. So in LATAM and Africa, the complexity was, I think, simply the highest within the organization. For the size of the business, for the margin profile of the business, the complexity was simply too high. And clearly, I think a lot of it, what was spoken by Sudhir, applies, I would say, with a 2x kind of impact in terms of the rest of the world business. We've taken a lot of actions. I'll touch upon a few. We have a very strong roadmap. I won't be able to touch upon all of them, because some of them will kind of fall through as the quarters and the year goes by. But I think that's pretty much external volatility, internal simplification as a theme under which we need to kind of work our strategy through. So within this, our emphasis is actually quite simple. It's about ensuring that we remain focused in terms of underlying volume growths, because that's where the consumer franchisee gets built, that's where the business gets built for the long term. We remain focused in terms of ensuring that we deliver in INR terms EBITDA growth and in INR terms cash growth. Yeah? And we do that on an annualized basis. There will be some kind of fluctuation month on month, quarter on quarter. They actually even out a country or 2 year or there. But on an annualized basis, if for this entire patch of business, if we are able to year on year grow volumes, year on year grow profits and cash, we will remain on a good trajectory. Yeah? So I think that's the way we see the journey. So how are we kind of using, I would say, our current code books to kind of deal with that? I think the first one is in the short to medium term. There needs to be a code book or a business model to manage volatility. Yeah? And while we do that, there needs to be a clear strategy to kind of strengthen the long-term business fundamentals. Yeah? Again, there cannot be one size fits all, and there needs to be a different kind of approach to each business cell. Yeah? And I'll kind of touch upon it as we go along. So in terms of managing, I would say the short term, pricing is a very, very important lever in terms of managing the volatility. Playing a fine balance between relative price index, strategic price index, replacement margins, a view in terms of the forex volatility, and ensuring that we do, I would say, sensible stuff for the immediate, medium term and long term is something which needs to kind of be part of DNA. And that's something which we've codified, we've learned, we've built as we go along. So that's something which has really helped in the journey till now, and is going to be an important lever as we go along. The other piece is really in terms of simplification. A lot has happened. We moved from 26 to 19 in terms of units. You will see some more simplification on manufacturing as you go through. While from a numbers point of view, we've done a lot in terms of impact on supply chain simplification and the impact it has on bottom line. You will see that over the next couple of quarters and year, you will see that impact of all those actions kind of come through. Some of this is subject to announcements, so I won't talk about it. Again, huge reduction in terms of SKUs, huge reduction in terms of fixed overheads. And at least that's helped us over the last 3 years to kind of move from high single-digit EBITDAs to closing the year with a 10%. So I think we've come to at least one step up on the ladder to where we've got, and simplification has been a big lever. I think while we do all of that, there is obviously the opportunity in the long run, which is very, very large. And under the larger umbrella, a lot is happening on that front. So we have a good hair fashion business, and there is the rest of the FMCG business. The salience in terms of the FMCG business has been going up across the years. With the East Africa restructuring, it notches up further because most of the restructuring is on hair fashion. And hence, as we speak, it's actually already moved into a majority in terms of the FMCG business. That's a business which is more resilient to taking on prices, it's more resilient to the economic environment, and it's got a huge opportunity for growth. Penetration levels are significantly lower. So that's going to be one momentum or one wave, which we already are on and we'll continue to ride, and I'll kind of touch a little bit on that. While we do that, in certain key cells, we have been driving significantly the go-to-market. This is an example of South Africa, where over the last 2 years, you can see the impact in terms of number of outlets which we've driven. And again, we spoke about Nigeria, where we've kind of moved to one single distributor and significant increase in outlets. So these two will be levers which will kind of keep getting us much stronger as we go along. So again, one incident when I joined 10 months back, 10th of August, while I started doing an induction within the company, I thought one good way of knowing GCPL was to kind of spend 2 days with 10 of you all who are sitting actually in this room. So I kind of set up time, used an hour and a half with each person, each analyst, to simply hear out about GCPL. Yeah, and got a lot of pearls of wisdom. You all have been tracking the sector and the company for long. And one analyst said that actually the west of India is an options value. Yeah, so we see a lot of, and I'm sure the person who's sitting here knows who said that. And he said it's an options value, great future. When will that option kind of become mark-to-market profit? We don't know, but it's a great options value. So thought that one will unpeel the onion a bit, because in that options value, actually there is great current spot value on the top, which I call top tier. There is actually futures value in the middle tier, and also there is some options value in the middle tier. And we felt there is a little bit of a mark-to-market loss onto the bottom tier. Yeah? So that's the way one can peel the onion. Actually, the top tier, which is South Africa and a part of our export geography, is really a jewel in the crown. It's a great business which we have. The salience of that business is quite high. It contributes around a fourth to the rest of the world revenue share. If you see from an economic volatility, it's mild volatility. Yeah, because exports, again, the way we do business gives us mild volatility. The volatility doesn't kind of translate into a risk on our side. South Africa, again, is volatility which is kind of mild. Historical growth trend has been double digit, close to double digit. Profitability is quite high. So very, very different approach as to how we see that business, how we grow the business, and sometimes it gets lost in the larger reporting of the cluster numbers. Yeah. When we come to the middle tier, it's a different strategy, and I'll kind of talk through how we're thinking about it. The bottom tier was where we felt the kind of effort which will go through and the size of the price, it simply made sense to kind of reorganize it and do it in a different way, where we have an economic benefit in the future business, but don't really run all the risks. Yeah. So that's the way we've done the strategy piece. Let me just kind of touch base quickly on a few cells to give you a flavor of how we see this business. So a bit in terms of South Africa, actually it's a business which is really good. It's as good as India, Indonesia. We have a third of the business which is hair color. We are market leaders. If you see on the core of our business, which is Enecto Black, over a 5-year CAGR, we have been growing at double-digit value growth, and we've been growing at a very high single-digit volume growth. So the business has been doing well, profitable, growing well. We had to take certain simplification actions there also in terms of SKU rationalization, and hence some bit of the optics in terms of reporting have borne on it. But a great business. I'll just kind of play an ad where we've launched a natural variant in that, and that we believe is going to be driving growth further from there on.
You ready? No, look at my hair. Girl, I got you covered. Enecto has a new naturals hair color. Color? Are you sure? Trust me.
Infused with argan oil and aloe vera, new Enecto Naturals Double Cream Color System allows you to color with care. New Enecto Naturals. Let your vibrance shine.
Yeah. So again, what you'll be able to see is the simplicity of connecting back with our global portfolio. It's such a kind of, I would say, overlap with what we have in Indonesia, in India, and hence to kind of run this kind of portfolio with this kind of profitability, margins, and growth is actually not adding complexity. So yeah, I think that also kind of comes out. The other piece, which is the other portion of the portfolio in South Africa, is the hair fashion portfolio. Again, doing extremely well for us. We have been upgrading the market. We are the market leaders there. And again, I'll kind of show you an ad which kind of talks about it.
1 in a million with perfect curls. Darling, 1 million braids.
So moving on to Godrej International or the exports portfolio. Again, from a salience point of view, this is a business which actually kind of contributes to 10% salience. It kind of really appeals to the Indian and the African diaspora. It is driven by primarily an FMCG category, and hence from a profitability point of view also, it's a very, very healthy business. The opportunity to grow is disproportionately high, and our track record in terms of historical track record also is quite proven. We continue to expand sales, add new markets, appoint new distributors. So the segue to growth in this is also quite large. Yeah. So that is the two which I will kind of refer to as the top, the jewel of the crown. I think moving on to the middle tier, I think there it's a balance of two things which we need to do and we are doing. One is drastic or ruthless simplification. We need to kind of keep reducing the cost base. We have done some good actions, pretty much 40% kind of SKU rationalization, etc. But while we do some of that, it's also important to kind of strengthen our core. And within those also, there are some actually, what I would say, rubies or pearls in the portfolio. Yeah. Let me kind of use two examples which I've kind of pulled here. Mega Growth is a brand which was pretty much, I would say, very, very low in terms of salience. Today, it's a high single-digit salience to the rest of the world in terms of salience. The brand's doing simply amazing stuff. It's grown almost 3x in a span of 4 years. We've really kind of expanded capacity. We've been struggling to kind of do supplies. And the opportunity which the brand has across Africa is just disproportionate. So it's already on the right trend. I'll just show a new ad. We just relaunched the entire mix a couple of months back. So I'll kind of show the campaign to you.
You should meet my best friend. She's the sweetest. Hey, bestie, how's my hair?
Which one? The one on your head or the one in your comb? Chill. All you need is Mega Growth Leave-In Strengthener. It has conditioning oils, so you can say goodbye to hair breakage. Wow, love your hair.
Really? Say goodbye to hair breakage with Mega Growth Leave-In Strengthener.
Yeah. So again, similar, spoke a lot about actually Africa. I think if we were to kind of move on to Latin America, there again, it's a portfolio which is strong. We are dealing with, I would say, reporting challenges because of, reporting things in hyperinflation accounting, funny ways of, reporting, which is a difficult to read, etc. We are hoping that things will kind of improve. There has been a lot of positive actions by the government there. But while that was the economic environment, currencies were depreciating 2 times, 3 times, some of the stuff which the team have done is simply amazing. I think it would kind of feature in as top performing even if it is in any other category. I'm going to show you a small video which kind of talks about VN, which is our new sunscreen brand, and really how it's played out.
The sun care category in Argentina becomes more relevant year after year, reaching almost $150 million. But it is a privilege for a few. We have the opportunity to reach millions of people in Argentina who want to protect themselves from the sun but need an accessible brand to accompany them and take care of them. Billnet, our brand with more than 60 years of history, had a low level of awareness because the lengthened pronunciation of its name generated difficulty in gaining mental presence. We then relaunched the brand to VN, simpler and closer to the consumer. We improved the product formula and renewed the packaging design. We understood that the consumer is not looking for complex formulas. We needed to generate closeness and convey ease of use, simplicity, and achieve a really good product. In the context of crisis in Argentina, in addition to simplicity, we wanted to generate inclusion. We can all take care of our skin, and we have a proposal according to each need. And from there, the concept arises. Keep the best of the sun. We made our consumers fall in love and were organically encouraged to try the product, and we found excellent results. 90% growth in volume, $5 million net sales, with a gross margin of 69.5%.
So these are numbers which one would love to have. Yeah, these kind of growths, 5 million, 70% gross margins. I mean, one would love to have these businesses. Okay, so to kind of come to the bottom, this was a bit of a difficult part. We needed to kind of bite the bullet. We needed to kind of go through the accounting assessment. Yeah, we looked at the carrying value which was on the balance sheet. Yeah, and as we kind of went through the East Africa restructuring, there was a particular way in which we thought we best do it. And hence we had to kind of take a charge in terms of an accounting charge. It's actually positive from a cash flow point of view. It's positive from a tax impact point of view. It also releases working capital which we were holding in the country. So it ticks off all the boxes. It takes off some part of the turnover, but it is positive on profits, and hence, yeah, this is something which we had to do. It's a one-time charge. We've taken it here. Yeah. So as we kind of see where we currently stand in terms of our country sales, and with certain specific actions in terms of simplification, in terms of working through improvements in terms of the mixes, the saliences, where do we believe that our business shape will get to in a few years? You'll see East Africa has already moved out. We believe that there are certain simplification initiatives in terms of manufacturing and supply chain which we'll be able to deliver in parts of the businesses, and we'll be able to kind of drive up saliences differently in some parts of the businesses. We do believe that things which are on the lower side of the EBITDA will move up, and that should kind of then, on a combined basis, move this 10% business to 15% over the next 2 years or so. Yeah. In terms of next year's aspiration, the aspiration will be slightly lower in terms of volume. Yeah, it's likely to be more closer to mid-single digit, but definitely over the 2 years, we would be looking at driving the EBITDAs to these levels. Okay, coming to summarizing it on the financials. The year was a good year. I'm not going to take too much time in terms of talking about it, but I think what we were happy about was the stability in terms of performance quarter on quarter. So we had 4 quarters where we delivered a particular shape in terms of volume, more or less close to mid to the high single digit in terms of volume. And again, from a profit improvement, we could deliver a shape of double digit EBITDA improvements right through each of the quarters. So again, a very fairly balanced in terms of guardrails in terms of the year, and that's something which kind of got us happy. It was also very, very broad-based across clusters. So a year in which all clusters fired in terms of underlying volume growth, and that helped kind of deliver an overall shape on volume growth. And pretty much 3 clusters out of 4 delivered in terms of a significant improvement in terms of the EBITDA margin. Latin America got impacted because of the Forex issue. There was a big, deep devaluation, and we couldn't kind of pay out monies. Otherwise, the situation actually underlying is not as bad there also. Yeah. And hence, to kind of put all the guidances together in terms of India, Indonesia, and the rest of, this is one slide. An important piece in terms of the last 2 years journey has also been on cash. Post Sudhir coming in over the last 2 years, there has been a renewed focus in terms of driving the underlying cash from operation. The accounting gets a little bit wishy-washy when you look at the reported cash, because we have also been doing the right things in terms of unwinding some of the structured payables, because structured payables doesn't really add to cash. It's just in a different way borrowed funds. So we've been unwinding that when the cost of direct borrowing is much cheaper. But if you kind of adjust for that and look at the underlying cash, we moved up as a company from 1,700 to 2,600, and that's what we've delivered per annum over the last 2 years. So significantly step up in terms of our cash deliveries. Yeah, and that in a way also allows us to kind of complete some of the one-time funding on CapEx, etc. We've also put a formal dividend policy in place. So you should see us now being consistent in terms of paying dividend. In the last 7-8 months, we had 2 dividend payouts. So we've kind of done a 5 and a 10, which we declared yesterday. So it's a 15 payout, which has been kind of announced. And we should kind of see a consistent dividend payout as we go through, leaving some space for any kind of, I would say, inorganic entry when the right opportunity comes up. At the same time, the CapEx which we've called out as 2 factories which are for the medium and long term and very, very important for us to kind of get that in place is a one-time kind of cash flow. It's going to kind of even out after 2 years. And we should kind of get back to the levels where CapEx becomes in sync with the depreciation, and hence you start seeing then cash flows becoming in sync with the EBITDA flows or the PAT flows. From an ETR point of view, next year will be the only year when we will be under the old tax regime. In FY26, we will move to the new tax regime. So FY26 is the year when you should start seeing benefits in terms of the effective tax rate go down. And hence that will be the bumper in terms of PAT. That's going to happen after a year, because currently we still remain on the old tax regime because our cash tax is much lower. So it's economically the right thing to do for us to stay on a lower tax regime. Yeah. Putting all of that together, from a next year perspective, we would kind of look at a high single digit underlying volume growth, sustaining the strong performance which we've had, and EBITDA is growing again in terms of mid-teens. Yeah. So that's all we had to share. You want to take on the Q&A session?
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. So we'll move to the Q&A session. So we would invite Sudhir, Asif, and Rajesh on stage. And we'll pass on mics across, and each one of you will have the opportunity to ask your questions. You can hold on. और नीचे ठीक में हो जाएगा. Table. Yeah, there's someone with the mic. Yeah, we're getting it. Just keep 2 mics here and 2 mics to be distributed. Yeah. Cool. People who have just questions, just raise your hand. Okay, yeah, please go on.
Yeah, thanks. My first question is on Vistar 2. So other companies are also doing it. In fact, Marico said that this will not have any cost. It will be self-funding. You mentioned that this will be expensive. So wanted to understand, is it also to an extent self-funding, or it will need some investments? Second is some of the larger FMCG companies, more diversified companies, have distribution direct of around 2.2 million to 2.8 million also. So would you need more categories to go there? You have a desire to go much higher, but when you compare your direct distribution to these 2-3 companies, it's much bigger gap. So wanted to understand that.
No, so Vistar is not going to be self-funding, because if you have a van going into a small village, the van costs, your cost of operation per day is 3,000 to 4,000 rupees, and at best you can sell 14,000 to 15,000 rupees. So it'll either be just about break even or probably an investment, whichever way you look at it. Because even of that 15,000 rupees that you sell in a day, only about 40 to 50% is incremental. Balances would have anyway come through wholesale. So you'll get 7,500 incremental per day. It'll cost you 3.5, so it will not be. See, as far as distribution goes, I have reasonable experience in this, and I think GCPL distribution is very, very good. I don't want to get into numbers, but a lot of us have been in sales. Distribution is distribution only when it is geofenced. Geofenced means when a salesman goes to an outlet, if you come, Nisa showed a chart there, has to be within 10 meters of booking a call. Because there are many, many definitions of distribution, outlets, this, that. There are some outlets. So I would say that from my own experience and my practical experience, GCPL is very, very good at distribution. I mean, and 1 million outlets to directly cover is a lot if you do it properly. So I would not agree, that's not my physical experience when I go to villages. The 300,000 outlets that we are going to Vistar, almost 2/3 of these have nobody coming to them. 1/3 of them have 1 or 2 companies that go directly. That has been our experience in calculating these. So I mean, I don't know, I don't want to make a comment on 2 million and 2.5. I just feel like we are very, very particular about what is called distribution, very scientific about it. As you know, on a daily basis, I can show you on a map who is there, what is the viability, etc. Yeah.
Sure. My second question is on the Raymond business and deodorant. This is the first year of the Raymond acquisition. 1 year back when Raymond con call was done by you, I think 80% of the questions were on why deodorant. Now, when 1 year has happened, your only slight disappointment, you yourself said, was on deodorant part of the business. Now, if I see that category, there's one large player who is unlisted, well-funded by private equity. So what will change as a strategy next year? Because the challenges of being a largely push model, very little differentiation, and one large player who is unlisted who can take quarterly calls, as in tough calls, that continues to exist. So what will change now here? And one slight positive question here will be in DMart, what has worked, 40% market share, but DMart normally the cheapest product works. So is it largely because of value that you got a very big market share there?
No, DMart is also a good measure of pull. It is not only a measure of value, it is a measure of pull because it's a few, I think, see, on deodorants, there's category development. There are 2-3 things that have to be done in deodorants. One is the category has to be restructured. It is too high on BTL. And there is too much difference between MRP and ECP. So there needs to be a little bit of structuring that has to be done where end consumer price, reflects MRP better. So for example, MRPs are 220 rupees. Trade price is often 100 to 110 and trade sells anywhere between 110 and 220. This in our view comes in the way of category development. 2 is, there is a lot that can be done. It is not an undifferentiated category. There are plans that we have in place to build the habit of antiperspirancy and fragrancing. So that will need innovations, that will need advertising, and that will need the category to be built in a certain way. Our penetrations are low, our consumption is low. It has not been a category that has been well, I would say, structured or well run in terms of category development. We'll have to do it. So it will be a painstaking task. It's not, condoms is an easy task. It's well structured. There's one player, you go in there, high margins, you get it. Here we will have to take the role of structuring the category.
Last quick question. So we are seeing that HUL, Reckitt in India are outsourcing to an extent, and it is the start, I will say, post GST, etc. Globally, it is a much bigger phenomena. And I see you putting around 900 to 1,000 crore capex in the coming years. So wanted to understand, you must have thought outsourcing also, but why that's not relevant or not working in your categories. Second, for Asif, what will be the effective tax rate next 2-3 years?
So I'll answer the first and then I'll hand over to us. See, Abnish, there are 2 criterion for outsourcing versus insourcing in manufacturing. A is the product differentiated. If the product is differentiated, you should not outsource, you should. And generally our GCPL innovations tend to be differentiated. So so we're very careful about what we outsource. 2 is, what is your share of the category? If you are a relatively small share of the category, then outsourced manufacturers have a cost advantage over you. But if, like in the case of many of the categories that we operate, that you're anywhere between 50 and 60, it is unlikely that the outsourced manufacturer along with the margins will be cheaper than you. So you have to take these 2 axes into play, and then you can arrive at it. There's no right and wrong decision. These 2 axes into play. For example, today, a lot of our deodorant aerosol is outsourced because as things stand today, there isn't that much differentiated. As things stand today, we are one relatively low share of a large market. If tomorrow we come with a differentiated product, we may decide to insource it. Asif.
Yeah, so on ETR, current ETRs in terms of standalone India are somewhere around 28, 29%. You'll see a little bit of a step up to kind of going towards more closer to 30 next year, but that's a mild one, and we'll see how we can kind of offset that. FY26 is when it kind of moves down and comes more closer to the 25% when we move to the new tax regime. Again, in all of these ETRs, there is a benefit of actually the RCCL acquisition, which is coming through. So if you see our accounts, we are creating a DTL because we're getting a tax benefit on the acquisition price. We are creating a DTL. We're not paying for the tax. It just goes and sits in the balance sheet, and it'll stay that way for like years to come because we're never going to be selling it. But that's how accounting requires it. So that's the ETR from a reporting point of view, but real payouts are much lower because of the tax covers.
Thank you.
Hi, Percy here from IIFL. Two questions from my side. So firstly, on the Fab liquid detergent, so you have a disruptive price point of 99. But apart from that, what is the right to win? I mean, because the price point is something that can be the most easily copied out of all the modes that you can generate. So that is one question. Second question is, if not any data points, whatever directionally you can share from your 2040 plan, what is your vision I mean, whatever you can share from that would be appreciated.
I think on the first question on Fab, I think the product is very good. And I think the product is differentiated. It is a very different surfactant mix to what is sold in the market. And therefore, we believe that at 99, it will be almost impossible for anyone to get a product as good as ours at 99. Or I won't say almost impossible, very hard. And it is not, I mean, and it is a little bit more complex. I don't want to get into the product technology, but suffice it to say that on our internal consumer testing, we find this product as good as the best in the market at a structural price of half. And we don't think it is easy to do a general LAS-based formulation. Most of these use one of the derivatives called LAS, which is what the bulk of it, and then you can keep cutting the AD and getting it. This is not. It's a totally different surfactant structure. It's totally different polymers are added to it. So it has been designed to be something that actually we've been working on for many years in GIL, along with GCPL. So we think that the product is differentiated. It is not just a consequence of the product being differentiated. Is we're able to sell it at a price which we think is a right premium to detergent powders to upgrade. So we do think there's a moat.
Just one sub-question there, rather than going into the science of it, if you can tell us what it translates to in terms of consumer benefit. Is it better stain removal or brightness?
It translates to parity cleaning at half the price.
Okay.
If anybody else were to do a product at half the price, they would at least do 3/4 of the cleaning. This is parity cleaning, both in the laboratory and in consumer testing.
And would this be at comparable margins to other industry players for you?
No, it will be lower than other industry players. So, but at some point of time we will get it, but it will be slightly lower than other industry. It will be lower than other industry players.
Sure.
But not an unacceptably low margin, and we see a path to a margin as well. So between 170 and 99, there is a big gap. Some of it is being subsidized in margins.
Right.
The second question on GCPL at 2040, for obvious reasons, I don't want to discuss it, but maybe we can discuss it in terms of what we did this year, right? Which is, as I told you, it's not that difficult to imagine India in 2040, because for the next 17 years, if things don't go well, we'll have 6% GDP growth. If things go well, we'll have 8% GDP growth. If it goes really badly, we may have 5%. But this is the kind of GDP range, so you can calculate over a period of time where your GDP will be. You have comparable countries in the world on that GDP. So you know what categories are big there and where will there be fast growth, right? So for example, laundry liquids is one of them. For example, deodorants and fragrances is a second, or premium condoms is a third. These are three entries. Air care is a fourth. Air care will have exponential growth for many decades to come in India, because you can easily look at per capita consumption on a dollar basis. So that is then guiding for us, how do we use our capital and how do we use our, things that we can do internally we will do. But as Asif said, we've earmarked about half our free cash flows as dividends. The other half we can then invest in building what we think are the categories of the future, providing they have some kind of competence that we have within ourselves. So that's how we're thinking about it. That kind of explains a little bit about why did we enter deodorants for all. I mean, a lot of the criticism was not unwarranted on deodorants, right? Which is, it's not a particularly well-structured category. That's a fact. I mean, it's a hard category, and unlike condoms. But if you take a 15, 20-year horizon, then you say, okay, let's just invest on structuring it well. And this is what the size of the category will be in 2040. You'll see that the price isn't too high if you look at it that way.
So do you think that the categories you have now are enough for you even in 2040, or do you think that there are some categories which you do not have and you would probably enter at some point of time without saying anything?
No, we will certainly expand our TAM over a period of time. Some of it we will do organically, some of it we may do inorganically, but you know, our purpose, the only thing that limits us is our purpose, which is to bring the goodness of health and beauty to consumers in emerging markets. So within that purpose, so it doesn't, we will certainly over a period of time, and with the kind of cash flows we're generating and the principle we have on capital allocation, we will certainly use the capital to grow faster.
Can we expect that over a 10, 15-year horizon, you'll do something a bit more in beauty, because personal care is something that you already have a large part of your portfolio
That you're asking me specifics now.
Okay, that's all from me. Thanks.
Hi. Yeah, go on, please, go on.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. This is Harith.
Mihir after.
Yeah.
So Mihir, you'll go after.
Yeah. Yeah, hi, good afternoon. This is Harith from Investec. So one question on HI. If you look at the Indonesia playbook that you presented, it seems like you're doing in India what happened last year in Indonesia, in terms of 4x more efficacy type product, even in terms of access packs, etc. And that resulted in a 38% growth last year in the HI business. Obviously, the scale of the businesses is different, but I just wanted to understand, that your initial, reading from what your launch has happened in the last 2 months. What kind of level of confidence that it gives you that probably the growth rate in the coming year could be disproportionate versus what you've seen historically, and within that also, within LVs, could that be a significant market share gain story? You're already at 58% in the non, if you X out the incense stick. So just wanted to get your sense about what you've seen from Indonesia. Could we be surprised over the next 12, 18 months in terms of how things work?
Yeah, I mean, the 38% in Indonesia was on a particularly low base, but nonetheless, it's been a very, very high growth. I think we have a second case study, which is Bangladesh, where also we did the same thing, which is we increased and changed the active in the LV, and we have seen very high volume growths there as well. So it makes us reasonably bullish on India. How much and how fast, I don't know. I mean, specifically, I don't know. Incense sticks has had a very good launch in many markets. It has done really well. LV, my gut tells me it will. These things usually take 6 months to 8 months before they start seeing the results. So what you saw in Indonesia, the active, we changed it in December 22? December 22 was when we changed the active in Indonesia. We really started seeing results in Indonesia by the end of Q1 of Q1? May, June. So Q1 of 24, May, June of 24. So it takes, similarly in Indonesia, in Bangladesh, it takes a few months. So if we launch the LV in June, July of this year, we hope that we see results you guys saw the difference in product, and it's a functional category. It's not an aspirational category. It has to kill mosquitoes, right? So you saw what it did there.
Got it. And just one more question on the impairment side. So, we understand the 900 crore impairment, given that you are divesting the East Africa business. Did that also require you regulatorily to, kind of do a check on the balance business, and hence you had, you took this 1,300 crore additional number on the balance Africa piece as well? Just wanted to understand that, and do you believe that there could be more, going forward?
Sure. So I don't think we believe there should be more going forward. I mean, we've obviously done a double checks in terms of what is it that we were carrying, what is it that we've impaired, where is the value. To give you the context that we currently are now holding around 4,000 crores for the entire Africa and US business, and we believe with the plans which we have in place, we should be able to generate strong cash flows to kind of justify that carrying value. Yeah. But we had to kind of do the boxes and the ticks in terms of post the restructuring, post all the external factors, post some of the simplification which we've already done, what that carrying value should be. So it's an accounting estimate. As accountants, we've kind of gone through it, got the valuations done and taken an accounting entry. Yeah, and even the sale of the entity, there are different ways you could structure it. So it's not that it necessitated us to kind of take a particular charge because we sold an entity. It could have been structured differently. So I think when we did all of it, we looked at what is the best way of doing the transaction, what's the most effective way from a cash point of view to do the transaction, and we did it.
Thank you.
Mihir?
Hi, sir. This is Mihir here from Nomura. So my first question is on soaps. It seems your performance versus the market leader has been significantly ahead. While you've grown in high single digits this quarter, there have been high single double-digit declines for the market leader. Can you help us understand what really played out with you? How did you get it so right? And maybe if you have any understanding that you can share on probably what things went wrong with other players.
I certainly can't share what went wrong with other players. But I can tell you that from our perspective, our soaps performance is competent. We are not particularly, in the sense our soaps business grows volumes anywhere between like 2 and 5. And that is roughly what, it has been on the higher end this quarter, next quarter maybe on the other lower end. This is the kind of variation that you get. So it has not been beyond expectations on soaps. We are also basing quarters in the past where the prices were very high and volumes were unnaturally low. So there's a little bit of all of that. We don't see a breakthrough in we have been performing well in soaps. We've been consistently gaining share in soaps. So nothing to complain in soaps. But we don't see it as a breakout quarter or anything for us. The future of the soaps business in our view has to be, of course, we will continue to gain share and we hope that there's one value driver of share here. And a second value driver, I hope, of upgrading to body wash.
So no major market share movements that you're witnessing?
There's a continuous market share gain in soaps. For a long period of time, we've been doing well on sharing. And it's been a consistent performance. No, we're not unhappy with our soaps performance. But it's not particularly noteworthy from our point of view.
Got it, okay. So my second question is on HI margins. With the new RNF molecule, etc., how should one think about the margin profile of that? Given that maybe you had indicated the launch will be at similar price points to the current packs at this point of time. So would the RNF have a higher cost structure and margins can be lower, or?
No, the RNF is roughly the same cost, a little bit higher than TFT. In the scheme of things, for premium formats, on cheaper formats, active forms a larger component of cost. But the differences are not material between RNF and TFT. So we have a molecule which is twice as good in our view. Actually, what you saw was even better than that today. But at least twice as good at roughly the same price.
And then how should we think about the margins when you add the agarbatti mix inside it? Assuming they will have lower margins. So with your higher increase in saliency of agarbatti sales,
yeah, so agarbatti margins are lower. We'll see as things go along. For us, agarbatti is good and it will give us some good growth this year, I hope. But really the game changer for us is LV. LV India is our largest profit pool globally. That is the one that if that takes off, as we hope it does, that will compensate for any other margins at the bottom of the pyramid.
Got it. So my last question is a macro question actually. Globally, we have seen as per capita incomes cross 2,000 per USD, there has been a J-curve effect in many categories such as yourself that you play in. We've already crossed India, as in India, unlike when China and other Asian countries cross that, we are not yet seeing that J-curve effect take off as soon. Would you think that 2,200 number, given the size of the population that we have, would ideally be, maybe at 2,500, 3,000? Any understanding that you have a sense on, are we the cusp of the J-curve, or do you think we are still some time away?
See, there is a J-curve. I think all the way up to $10,000, FMCG typically outgrows GDP. I think India is a little bit of a strange case where GDP is different from consumption. So if you ask me, FMCG is outgrowing consumption, that it is. Consumption is probably 2.5% to 3%. FMCG may well be, when you take all DTC, all unlisted players, maybe 4.5%, maybe the. So it is a multiplier effect on GDP, but for that, consumption has to grow. So there has to be a fundamental unlock on consumption growth in India. GDP is what we do for analysis, it's easy to do, but as we are realizing, it's not GDP growth that matters, it's consumption growth that matters. When consumption growth goes, when countries move from $1,500, unbranded foods falls as a percentage of their income, packaged foods, HPC, etc., go up. And that's what will happen. But the question you have to ask is, when will consumption growth in India see the J curve overall, or when will the economy see a J curve? With that, FMCG will only do better.
Got it. Thank you. And lastly, any comments on the near-term outlook, if you can share? Competition like Britannia, Marico, they've come out and, called out for a very strong near-term outlook. We've seen the guidance that you shared, but maybe on overall demand environment, anything that you want to highlight?
No, I'm saying the demand environment, there is what it is today and what it could be tomorrow. What it is today is a K-shaped demand environment where the top 20%, there is a boom, and the balance 80% is tough. That is the reality. If that changes to having a more balanced growth across, it is generally very good for FMCG. But our plans are based on the fact that it doesn't change. That is the worst case for us. And therefore, we will try and do what it does, even if the K-shape is not good for FMCG, because at the top of the pyramid, FMCG consumption, is not what gets all the growth. It's only when, consumers who are $2,000 to $4,000 are growing, do you get it? When $7,000, $8,000 per capita consumption goes up, that affects FMCG a little less. So we are planning for the worst, hoping for the best.
Got it. Thank you and wishing you all the very best.
Thank you.
Yeah, Manoj, go on.
Hi, this is Manoj Menon from ICICI Securities. Hi team, excellent presentation, must say. One thing on the household insecticide business, Sudhir, I'm here.
Where are you, Manoj? That's what I was looking for you.
Just on the household insecticide business, as the name itself is HI, but all the discussion has been on mosquito. If you could just throw some light in terms of the other segments of other insects, which has been an opportunity for a very long period of time, and there has been historical reasons, templates, etc., why it has not really played out. So, if you could double click on this, that will be helpful.
No, I will speak about cockroaches, and I will hand over rats to Rajesh. He's an expert on rats. But it is not true that we are not focused on the others. They are small and they're growing fast. Mosquitoes is an overwhelming part of our portfolio, so we do tend to speak a lot because it's a problem to fix. The moment we start fixing the problem, we will show you guys. For example, last year, and it also plays into this thesis of the K-curve, last year, one of our fastest growing SKUs was something called anti-roach gel, which I think we sell at about 300 rupees. It's a gel injection that you put, and that has close to doubled last year. We've been advertising it. So cockroach in India has been doing really well. There are others to be done as well. There are many other insects, but what we have been saying is let's first get mosquitoes right. I think we've got it in Indonesia, and Rajesh can speak about the work that he's done on Chap Gaja. And then we will speak anyway more to you guys and do more on others. But mosquitoes is still, even in much bigger countries, mosquitoes still remains big. But Rajesh, you may want to add on.
I think if I take the case of Indonesia, there's a difference in what consumers feel as problem. So, cockroach chappal hai kafi hai is the attitude in Indonesia, but rats are genuine issues. If you just look at the environment and the amount of vegetation, everything, a lot of rat infestation happens. And we believe that we already have a sizable business, and that's fairly underplayed. We've never really done anything there. Last year, we just fixed the product quality and upped the game, and it's helping, but a long way to go. And as time evolves, it will obviously step out of the traditional business into more things. As you realized, I was telling you, our core of the business was not in right shape. And then you can't be chasing something else. So fixing the core was the right thing to do. Now we'll expand to more things to do.
Thank you. Sudhir, just again, just following up on this, the context of me asking that question, because you highlight some one aspect about category development as one of the important pivots for you, right? I mean, so is it fair to say that, the non-mosquito piece is just a prioritization at a point in time?
It is reasonably high priority already, but the higher priority for us is to fix mosquitoes. I think we've done a good job in Indonesia. Once we do it in India, this will, it also releases resources. When premium household insecticide mosquitoes grows, it will also release profit. So it's very much, I wouldn't say it's low priority today, it's actually mid priority today, and I think it will go up in the list of priorities the moment we see better results in mosquitoes. So it's certainly a category of the future for us, and a lot of work is going on non-mosquitoes.
Understood. Thank you. And second and last question on Africa. Just about 10 years back, thanks to the company taking us to Kenya, for example, so we had the opportunity to visit Kenya, South Africa, etc. But today, when I actually see in the bottom, Eastern Africa is actually in the bottom in terms of the opportunity. So what has changed in the last decade, let's say from a, if I say to use the word good market to a, let's say, not so great market today? Is there anything macros, micros, execution, competition? What has changed?
Do you want me to answer that, Asif? No, unless you want to. No, I think, so my honest answer on Kenya is there are two things that we probably didn't do well enough in Kenya. The first is we did not market develop. See, we were operating in South Africa and in Kenya and in Nigeria at the bottom end of the braids business, which is called PP. This is a relatively commoditized play. In South Africa, we were able to upgrade this to Modak, which is a more premium play, very well. In Nigeria, second. In Kenya, we didn't do the market or category development systematically. What is the reason? I don't know, but there is a difference in the way we have shaped the category. So a lot of this has to do, deodorants also, it has to do with how we shape the category. So that shaping of the category wasn't done well in Kenya. And because the shaping of the category wasn't done well in Kenya, it has a much smaller FMCG base than the other countries do. Though we have not sold our FMCG business in Kenya, we continue to run a FMCG business. But I would say the primary problem in Kenya, macros, all that is fine, is our inability to premiumize the market from commoditized braids to more premium braids.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that.
And I mean, the reason for exit is you can ask, why can't we do it now? But then it's a question of capital and time allocation. Where do we put it? There are so many other category development jobs to be done, which are better than now reshaping Kenya.
Yeah, hi, over here.
Yeah, go on.
Atul Mehra from Motilal Oswal Asset Management. So just one question on LV in terms of, there is a general, I don't know to what extent real or perceived, thing with LV that it is harmful for, in terms of humans as well, not just the mosquitoes that get killed in the process. So what is the fact around it, and how do you think that this is also a reason why there is perhaps lower adoption of LV?
It's a good question. The fact is it's not true. What do we do about it? And I think one of the things that we have done, and actually we're very happy with our LV performance in India last year in terms of market share, is 2 years ago, and we were talking about relevance. We changed the positioning of Goodnight, or not changed actually. Goodnight was always mother and baby. We went back to the old positioning of safe for a baby's night's sleep. Right? So we have been consistent for 2 years on that. And the reason is, if you keep saying it's safe, it's actually like, people don't believe you. It's like the boy who cried wolf. But when you use a metaphor like a baby sleeping, it is both a metaphor for efficacy, because babies sleep very lightly and they wake up with the slightest disturbance, but also one of safety. So we have taken a very conscious call in all our advertising. Even when we do the new relaunch, we will not move away from this idea of a baby sleep. And I think that is our way in which we are reassuring consumers on this worry that they have at the back of their mind, that if it's safe for babies to sleep in, it will surely be safe for others. And that is, so rather than going and countering it, saying, no, it's not a fact, it's actually safe, we're softened the positioning of Goodnight versus having a much sharper positioning on Hit. And that's why we have two brands, where Hit is a killer and Goodnight is a protector. So that's what we have done strategically. It was a big change, and now we feel we are reaping the dividends of it.
Sure, thank you. Just one other question on the longer term. So you mentioned that in the medium to long term, you are open to other categories as well. So will this be beyond home and personal, or will it be always restricted to home and personal?
Oh, I think, I don't know about home and personal, but it will be in beauty and health. So, I mean, it's very unlikely that snacking is in beauty and health. So we won't do it. So we will be in beauty and health because that's our purpose. So we will be guided by our purpose and by where India will be in 2040. Both these we'll be guided by when we think of categories.
Right. So the reason I ask is within the group we have businesses in food as well, right? In Agrovet, for example, to some extent. So can there at some point in time be channelized in one entity so that there is larger focus and a much larger FMCG player?
That is beyond my pay grade, so I'm going to ask.
I think, thank you for that question. And obviously, I think foods is, a very important category for us. I think for now, what I can say is that we've probably not done enough and not done enough aggressively. So I think at an overall group level, I think you're going to see a lot of renewed ambition, and food would definitely be an area that we want to play strongly in.
But will it be reorganized within this entity at some point in time?
No. I mean, that's a question, I think, that's a few years out. These food businesses are in our agri-business. But I can just tell you, I can't tell you structure because I don't think we've answered some of those questions for the longer term, but I can tell you that food is something that we will be investing in.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks.
Arnab, then the gentleman at the back.
Yeah, so my first question was that, there are two categories, deodorants as well as this agarbatti category, where the trade margins are very high, the trade structure is not great, there's no one dominating player. So in your experience, has it been possible in the past in any category to change these kind of dynamics in trade? Is it worth putting the effort to do that, or it's just the rules of the game in each category are different and you should just look at like growing within those rules? And how difficult will it be to kind of circumvent if you like these kind of trade structures that are there?
So firstly, the rules of the category are set by the category leader. There's no inherent. See, firstly, in agarbatti, the way we're playing the agarbatti game, we're very conscious that when we start a game, we are not going to start with playing this trade game. So our MRP in agarbatti is 10 rupees, but our trade price, I think, is 8 rupees. Whereas the rest of the market, locals are doing 10 and 6.5, 7, etc. So we are going to play the retail game. So one of the other things in agarbatti that we are not going to do is to play a wholesale game, undercut and sell and so. But that's because we are shaping the category right in the beginning. I have not seen too many categories with radical transformation on trade structures, but I have seen enough categories with some amount of transformation on trade structures. The big determinant of this is brand pull and advertising. There is going to be there's going to be a period in which you're going to be able to have to run high trade schemes and run advertising, make this into more of a brand pull category, and then do it. And one example I do have is in the ice creams category, where there was a time in which ice creams, everybody was running 1+1 in the ice cream category. You guys may or may not remember. And we took, a call was taken to make it to a single, which is not to run a 1+1 and halve the price. And that category did see a lot of growth after it. So if you do, so that is one example of a bold move that you take to cut the BTL. I mean, you're not actually cutting the ECP, you're just cutting the BTL. And it has seen, but there are few and far between. But some categories need that surgery. Deodorant certainly needs that. We'll have to figure out when we can do it, how do we build brand pull. But it does, because there's no point in a category like this. In aerosols, we give 10%, the same deodorant, the same LPG. We give 15% margin is what we give to the retailers. This is 100% margin to retailers. And it allows flexibility for retailers to price and so on and so forth. So it'll have to be done, but there are other solutions on deodorants. I mean, for example, 2/3 of the category in most developing markets is antiperspirants. It is not. So there are many ways in which you can circumvent formats, you can democratize, so you can find differential solutions around deodorants. But it's a difficult game, Arnab. But we will play the game simply because the size of price at the end is very large.
Sure. One follow-on question on HI is that the outdoor mosquito market, which is quite large outside India, very small in India, any reason why it is still very hard to address in India, and any plans on that?
See, in most developing countries, it's not. In some developed markets, it's large because there's an outdoor culture in the US, etc. In developing markets, it's a relatively small proportion of the overall mosquitoes. For example, in Indonesia, it's bigger than India, but it's still overall small. We do have plans. We do have some innovations in our funnel to deal with the outdoor problem. Incense sticks, by the way, itself, you'll find a lot of people in farms and in villages keeping it as outside their door, just in their veranda, etc. Roll-ons in India is a small market, not growing particularly fast. So it's a bit of a peripheral market, a little bit like non-mosquitoes. We'll play it, but in the course of time.
Sure. And lastly, Asif, one question on Africa. So this margin journey from 10 to 15, is it a straight line between FY 25-26 or it's more back-ended? And secondly, what we've seen in Africa, based on our experiences, something or the other unexpected does happen. So does your plan build in any contingency of some currency, some country going through a bad patch? Because we've had this expectation of an increase which has in the past not happened. That's the genesis of the question. Sure.
No, so you're right. I mean, and that's why I started off with that. I mean, there will be certain changes. We can't assume that, things are going to be hunky-dory in terms of currencies, countries. So there will be certain volatilities as we go through. But I think it's about what we can do structurally and where can we kind of shift in terms of efficiency, simplification. And we're basing our plan in terms of that inputs. So unless there is real drastic stuff, yes, it does build in for some of those, I would say, volatilities. And yeah, it's a plan which is not lopsided towards the end, but yeah, we should see sequential improvement really from your point of view. But yeah, at times, volatility can disturb a little bit here and there, but we should see a sequential improvement year on year.
The gentleman at the back, yeah.
Hi, Tejas Shah from Avendus Spark. So the first question is actually to seek your insight for the problem that industry is facing today. We all are anchoring our medium to long-term picture to that per capita story and how FMCG has behaved in all those countries when per capita has moved from $3,000 and beyond. Now, one change which we can see is that emergence of cell phone or smartphone as a category which has taken a large part of the wallet share, which would not have been the case in all those countries when they were actually going through this transition. So do you see a massive wallet share change which has actually played out as a competing category, even at the bottom of the pyramid, which is kind of not allowing for this our FMCG journey to play out the way it played out in some other developed markets?
See, I don't know. I haven't thought deeply enough about it, though I looked at this latest consumption survey, and that's not, I don't think that's the major story. I think, if anything, the story is what I put up, right? If you have GDP has only been a shorthand for consumption growth, but if GDP is 7.5, consumption is 3, and agri is half, with still 50% of people being employed in agri, then what we were looking at as GDP was only a surrogate for domestic consumption. So the shape of India's growth, if it is going to come at the top 15-20%, that the story will not play out in FMCG or may play out slightly differently than that's a more compelling hypothesis than the mobile share. I mean, that's possible, but I find that to be a more compelling thing, that when I go into rural markets and so on and so forth, that kind of buzz that you see on income when you're in urban cities and places like this, you don't see that.
No, in absolute number, we have created out of nowhere in the last 15 years, 4 lakh crore kind of category, which is quite penetrated in even lower strata as well. So that's why when you put it in denominator, suddenly you realize that it is as large as some total of FMCG large categories.
Yeah. See, when I visit consumers, the median income that I ask people their income in India is one of the few countries where people happily tell you what their husband is earning and what they're earning. Generally, like if you go randomly, 30,000 rupees is what consumers generally earn. They spend about 20,000 rupees a month On groceries, they end up spending about 10,000. On HPC, they end up spending 1,500 to 2,000. Mobile phones, if you ask them, 300 to 400 rupees is what their spend is. So in the scheme of 30,000 rupees household income for a median consumer, the category that you're talking about all put together maybe 500 rupees a month, over the last 15, 20 years. So maybe it's part of the story. But it's not that they're spending 3,000 rupees a month on digital, They're also, so they're spending whatever, 1,000, 1,200 rupees on milk, 1,500 rupees on fruits and vegetables. Laundry liquids is a really interesting story because of the 1,500 rupees on HPC, they often spend 400 rupees on laundry liquids in the south. So when you get a solution at 200 rupees for 2 liters, usually is what they use, it becomes a big saving in this. So I have not observed that kind of category shift when I go and meet consumers one-on-one, this 30,000 rupee income earning consumers. That's not the big story. Definitely there's a story on employment, on growth, and so on and so forth. You don't find that kind of bullishness. If you go and meet someone who's earning 1,00,000 rupees a month, you see a lot of bullishness. You see their basket, you'll see a lot of personal care coming in, a lot of these D2C brands, all of this comes in there. And there's a lot of bullishness there. But yeah.
Sure. Second, on our numbers, so with the kind of intervention and energy that we are actually displaying on innovation, expansion, category development, do you think that high single-digit volume growth for India is slightly conservative number? Because companies who are not doing as much are also guiding around in the same ballpark.
Nice. I think you must have had a chat with Nisa before coming here. No, I mean, look, I can tell you, so let's take the bigger picture, right? Like 1.2 to 1.3 GDP is a good growth for an FMCG company. Unfortunately, if the GDP was 7.5, domestic consumption was 7.5, your question's a valid one. We should actually be 10, 11%. But if domestic consumption is 3.5, then if we can grow at 8.5, we're really pushing the boundaries. And you can see also the peer set, what it's growing at and what widespread consumption companies are growing at. So I would say that if domestic consumption goes to 7.5% and domestic consumption and GDP mirror each other versus there being such a big gap between the two, then I think we should probably reset our plans to being more aggressive.
Sure. And the last one, the category challenges that you called out on deodorants, was just curious, were you aware about or this challenges surfaced during the process of due diligence? Or it's only once we get married to the category, we realize that these are the challenges?
No, we were fully aware of it. We were fully aware of the fact that deodorants is an attractive but poorly structured category. We were fully aware of going in with it.
That's all from me.
And it is an exception, by the way, I must also tell you, India is an exception to the rule. Everywhere else in the world, deodorants is structured like every other FMCG category. This is the exceptional country. Yeah. Next time around, and I don't want to share some plans on innovations, etc., but we are constantly thinking about how do we restructure, because the first thing we want to do is to restructure the category. It's a bit like Africa, right? The future is bright, but you first have to restructure, then you have to grow. So that's what we'll have to do in deodorants.
We'll take a last question. And
the last question, Sheila. Go on.
Yeah, hi.
Avi also has a question.
Okay, got it. So we'll do that.
So let me start with the last point you made, Sudhir, on innovation. So what is the share of innovations for us as a percentage of sales now?
See, so the question is, what is the definition of, so a new product, the delta that it gives over 3 years is what we call an innovation. Right now, it is about 1.5 to 2%. We want to take it to 3 to 3.5% of our growth.
Understood. So, we really look forward to your next book, which is Fabulous Story. But, going back to the first book of yours, which is CEO Factory, and 2 important messages from that book is that one is you get the product right, brand will follow, and the science and art of pricing, and you gave the example of ice creams. Now, how will you break down our portfolio in terms of these 2 strategies? Obviously, LV will be in the former strategy, and the new Fab launch is in the latter strategy. But, with respect to the other parts of the portfolio, where are we?
No, I don't know if there's a duality like that. I think as a general rule, you have to get and I don't think Fab is we're marketing it at 99 rupees, but we know the kind of repeats we're getting. We don't think Fab is a pricing story. That is not, pricing is half the story on Fab. We think other half is get the product right. So we very rarely, or in fact, one of the things we have not done, and we have reduced our innovation numbers, but we're still trying to increase our innovation impact, because we don't want to launch anything which is not differentiated. So we have very stringent rules in terms of blind product tests and product tests. So every product that we launch it because we think it's a differentiated, better product. We completely stopped doing, just replicating a product and doing it. So therefore, that rule applies to everything. There is no part of the portfolio. So one of the calls we will take is, we will not enter new products and new categories organically in any case, where we don't see a differentiated product. And you'll see when you guys use the body wash. Body wash is a good example. You'll see yourself when you use it how differentiated it is versus other body washes in the market. And you just saw it on RNF. So that is the point on getting the product right, which I think is, by the way, I think it was also part of Godrej's DNA, and I think we're just building on it. Your second point on, what was the point on pricing, Sheila?
Art and science of pricing. I mean, I made a point on Fab.
Yeah, no, I mean, the art and science of pricing, a lot of it goes back to, pricing under volatile circumstances. I'll give a good example is pricing that we took during the oil pump crisis of 2023, where PFAD, which is our raw material, went up to 1,600 rupees, $1,600 a ton. We never priced up more than $1,200 to $1,300. So we have certain rules of pricing. When do we absorb the loss? Now PFAD, for example, is at 860. Last year it was at 750. That pricing we can absorb. So in the art and science of pricing, we have certain heuristics on how much pricing can a consumer take at a point in time, how many price increases can she take over a year. These are heuristics. They're not something cast in stone, but at least we've written them down. And then, and it comes most into fruition in things like soaps, where we do it in a pretty disciplined manner. Last question, Avi?
Yeah.
Sorry, Sheila has one more question.
One last question for Asif. Asif, you called out, right, for Africa, we need to look at cash flows. But in your projections, you talked about margins. So how should we look at the cash flows over the next 2 years?
So we've got a very strong AR plus inventory reduction plan, both in Latin America and in Africa. We still feel that we should be able to kind of get cash flows growing ahead of EBITDAs. And that is a part of our internal plan for the next 2-3 years. So we will continue to kind of bring down both inventory levels and AR, and EBITDA fully flows. There is really no capex which we require in the region. So yeah, cash flows will be significantly ahead of EBITDA growths.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi, this is Avi here from Macquarie.
Yeah, go on.
Just one question for you, Sudhir. If we look at the India business over the next, say, 2-3 years, given the levers in terms of product portfolio going into more categories of the future, given the cost optimization that we are doing, would it be fair to look at steady margin expansion from current levels over the next 2-3 years? Maybe not next year, but just an understanding. Is that the right framework, or would I be?
If margin comes, we won't say no to it, but that's not the objective. The objective in India is to grow volumes. We are at structurally margins that are quite healthy. And our number one task in India and Indonesia both, Indonesia actually we should take up the margins as well, but in India our number one task is to turbocharge volumes. That's the lens we're looking at everything. Now you see, sometimes you turbocharge volumes. If, for example, LV starts selling really well after the new relaunch, it will also take up margin. That's why I'm saying we don't want to say no to margins, but our job is to drive volumes.
But would it not be a rational outcome? I just thought it would be.
It could be. Okay. It could be a rational outcome of premiumizing, but that's not our mindset. Our mindset is not how do we take up Indian margins. Our mindset is how do we grow volumes. If margins is a consequence, it is. And that margin, we may choose to reinvest it into the business. We may choose to take capital decisions with that margin as well. But I think it's fair to say that our belief in India and Indonesia in particular, these two countries are going to be the hottest two countries over the next few decades. We've got good positions. Now our job is to grow, organically, new categories, acquisitions, whatever it is. we will prioritize growth. And so while I think you asked me a question on high single-digit volumes is what we got to do organically. We may enter new categories, we may do new things, and hopefully take up that virtuous cycle beyond that.
Got it. And just one bit for, I understand the India and Indonesia lens, but when I look at the Africa lens, and that slide was showing Africa is actually not one country or one region, it's multiple regions. Would it be right to look at the Africa more from each margin separately? Because then, given East Africa will now straight away go to EBITDA, given the mid-end will actually not have a big margin. So the margin profile number should be more front-ended because the sales will not come in, but the EBITDA will come in, and then you will see steady expansion because South Africa will lead the growth. Is that not the right lens, or would EBITDA growth be the right lens? Would be useful to understand how best to look at this.
The East Africa actually kind of gives us a bump up of around 150 bips on margin. That'll happen. I mean, that's nothing. It's more of an accounting. So that will happen. And when we see internally, the business for us is each cell, because each cell is different. Our brand positionings are different, the businesses are different, and that's the way we run it. But I mean, when it comes to an overall guidance, obviously there'll be certain things which will move up, some things will move down. Yeah, we have a journey where we want to take this to 15% plus EBITDA levels, at which we believe is then healthy levels for that kind of cluster of operations, and then it becomes pretty much grow volumes, grow revenue, grow profits. But there is a step up, or as Sudhir was saying, restructure it and get it to a particular level, and then we kind of let it be business as usual.
Got it. Okay, thank you. That's all.
I think there'll be more questions. Sudhir, Asif, and Rajesh will be available at lunch, so you guys can definitely ask them any more questions.
Can I ask a last one, if I may?
Please do.
Go on.
Sudhir, hi. Thank you so much. This is Amit from HSBC. So my question is on a bit of a premiumization journey you want to take in India, and especially relates to category like soaps. Obviously, this is a very large category for you, although it's very penetrated. But if you analyze what is happening in cleansing equity space, because soaps is cleansing, right? And you want to obviously go to body wash. But then in cleansing equity, a lot of changes are happening. Naturals is coming, some actives is coming, there's a nourishing activity. While Synthol and Godrej #1 has been two mainstays for you, but doesn't seem like the play is very clear in the way things are changing very rapidly. Because cleansing activity can even be taken to hair, not just face and body. So even your body wash kind of like going to Synthol, you're trying to mimic soap, but how does consumer really understand what is a true value proposition for him? So I'm just thinking that category is becoming so complex. Are you sort of not solving the problem enough or solving only part of it?
I don't think the category is becoming complex, because the way I look at life is sometimes what we see in our vicinity is what we imagine all of the reality to be. So, if you travel to Indonesia, for example, Indonesia is a $4,500, $5,000 per capita. So it is what India will be a decade from today. That category has evolved from soaps to body wash in a certain way. That is what has happened in Thailand as well. Unless there's some new fundamental molecule that comes in and the chemistry changes, why should that change? Because you can say culture, but you look at 5-6 countries of the next level of per capita. Indonesia is a good country actually for India, because even culturally, it's quite similar to India. So the story in Indonesia now, Indonesia is 50%, if I'm not mistaken, body wash and 50% soap, right? India is, I think, 5% body wash, not even 5% body wash, and 95% soap. So the question that you have to ask is, why is Indonesia 50-50 and why is India 5-9? That's the simpler question to ask, right? And it is not because it has moved into naturals and this and that. There are some hypotheses that we have, which again I don't want to specifically share, but we have brought it to life in our product. We believe that the product offerings in body wash in India haven't been appropriate, and there is some science and technology in it, which we think we have bought it. So I'd be very curious to hear what you think about. And so I don't subscribe to this world is getting complicated and so on and so forth, because there are neighboring countries where you can see reality. Within India itself, you can see how does a $2,000 consumer behave, how does a $4,000 consumer behave. You can see many consumers here who will be far ahead of $10,000 per capita not using body wash. So there are lots of things you can draw even from the Indian parallel, and it's often much simpler than it seems.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Great. So thank you, everyone. I'd like to thank Sudhir, Asif, Nisa, Rajesh for definitely sharing their thoughts with us. We will now move on to the lunch. Post that, we will request you all to collect your goodie bags after the lunch event. Great. Thank you.